some folks see, I think, our passion and what we do and our dedication to our craft and view it as cultish. Because I think that those individuals might be in the space of like, I'm here to have fun and just hang out, and all the work you guys are putting in is weird to me. And that's an understandable perspective. Like, I understand it, right? And that goes into what I said earlier too, of, you know, work is cool versus like hanging out and being not caring is cool, right? Both are valid in their own way, and there's times for one or the other.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sweet Talking Podcast with me, your host, Nepherti. This is episode 72 of the podcast, and we are joined tonight by Trudeus, the head of management over at Luxe Nova. But before we get into that, and we'll have him introduce himself formally, but before we get into that, I do want to say thank you to everyone who is tuning in to this live. Thank you to everyone who continues to support me and my streams. It really means a lot to me. That you guys are the reason why I continue to do this live. I could just record this, but I think it's a lot more fun if you can actually sit in on it live. So thank you so much for being here and supporting me. I also want to say thank you to everyone who has continued to support me over on various social media websites, and of course over at patreon.com/Nepherti. That is a great way to support me and this labor of love that I do. I've been doing this podcast for quite some time, and if you're interested in supporting me, that is an option for you to do so. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of tonight's podcast, but I just want to say a very quick thank you to everyone over there who has been so supportive of me. So, of course, before, we've gone over those things, so we're just gonna get that out the way. We've talked about that, so we're gonna get right into the mix of things. So, tonight, we are joined by Trudeus, the head of management over at Luxe Nova. But before I could say what I could say about Trudeus, but honestly, I think it'd be much better for you to kind of get into who you are and what you do. But I usually try to do a little bit of an icebreaker first. I try to kind of like get things started, even though we were talking before we went live tonight. So I do want to say, like the first time we met was actually at Femboy Host Club's the Trevor Project event, where I interviewed five of the performing arts, people who are in that scene. Yeah, that was the first time we met.
Yeah, I remember shit talking to other club owners on that. I remember. Oh yeah, that's a good memory.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. I'm glad it really opened the door for like people to show their personalities, and like I kind of just did that kind of off the cuff. I've never interviewed 5 people at once before, so that was really a first for me too, and I'm glad that you had fun with that.
You did great.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Hell yeah. So yeah, like ever since then, like obviously all the people who were involved in that event were very, very interesting personalities, but I've always really had an affinity or an interest in Luxe Nova, even before that interview. With everybody there. So I knew that it would be a good opportunity to sit down with you and chit chat with you at some point, hopefully. And since then, it's been like, I want to say it's been like maybe 4 or 5 months since that happened. Yep. Maybe? Because that happened like in summer. Yeah. So,
Yep, it was June.
Yeah, so, and it's now, very, very busy. Yeah, you've been busy, I've been busy. A lot has happened since then, so I'm glad we were able to finally get a chance to sit down for this episode. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Agreed. I've been told, let me phrase this sounds egotistical and that's not my intention. I've been asked by several different folks over my years online to start podcasts with them. This is the first time I've actually been able to be on one, so I'm very excited for the opportunity, and I appreciate you taking me onto the show here and letting me yap for 3 hours. I don't know why you would do that. I'm obnoxious, but hey, I'm not complaining. So
wait, so
should be fun tonight. I'm excited.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. And so they were saying that you should start a podcast, or they should be on a podcast with you, or like you.
Yeah, well, same-ish. It's usually like, hey man, you and me should start a podcast, and my response has always been, if you do the work on recording and everything, I will gladly come and talk. And it's never moved past that point.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, sick. There we go. That's exactly what I kind of expected, you know. So I put it on that way, you know.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, like, doing this is not it's not easy. I've been doing it for
It's
a
time consuming.
while. Yeah, it's very, very time consuming. It's a big commitment, and if you want to do it right, which is something I really take that's something I take very seriously. It takes a lot of time, and I want to make sure that it's always as good as it can be every time. So I'm really
Absolutely.
grateful that you're willing to take the time and take a chance on me to interview you tonight. So appreciate that.
Like I said, I appreciate the opportunity. This is gonna be fun. I'm
Hell
excited for
yeah.
this.
Very nice, very nice. So let's go ahead and get started. How about you kind of introduce yourself? You can use as much detail as you like. So how about you tell people who you are and what you're about?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Trudeus. Trudeus, Trudy, True, whatever. One guy calls me Trud, the Destroyer of Worlds. I have a million nicknames at this point. I'm old. I am head of management at Luxe Nova's Observa Theater. We have several head managers there, so I run the Observa Theater department of the group. I'm also a dancer. I also do a lot of like political studying and all that kind of stuff. I'm a musician. I'm learning guitar, quote unquote learning. I haven't touched it in 3 months, but we're getting there. I've played saxophone for like 15, 16 years. Yeah, just a lot of stuff. A lot of artsy stuff, all that kind of stuff. It's been a lot of fun. And I
Wow.
take leadership very seriously, which I love diving into. So.
Okay. So you've already been like very, very heavily into the performing arts sector of just like life in general, not just in VR, but IRL as well for a long time.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I got my start in middle school. I was a flutist initially. Flautist, how you pronounce it? I don't know. I don't play in ensembles anymore, unfortunately. Started in flute, and then I went to saxophone in 7th grade, and then from there I've stuck with that since. My big like diving into music moment was going into freshman year of high school. I had signed up for marching band and then was lazy and decided to not go. And my friend Claire called me up and was like, "Hey, you should pull up on this. Like you should come do this. Like you signed up for this. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Come hang out, right?" And I cracked under the pressure and went, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. I dived into marching band. I then dived into pep band. I played concert band. Eventually, as I got more into high school, like I think by year 3, I was doing pit orchestra and helping out with that as well. Playing Sing 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 on a tenor saxophone is so fun. It's such a fun song to play. It's a blast, absolute blast. Any musicians out there, go play that song. It's if you can get a copy for the instrument. It's so fun. Jazz band eventually as well, and then I went to school for a year for music and sound design at a video game school, and then dropped out. Dancing was always something I was interested in, but it was more like I want to go clubbing with my friends, and being a music band nerd who played a lot of video games, that was a very rare opinion in my social groups. Most of my boys at the time were not keen on going to the club on the weekends. That wasn't really their shtick, which was fine. And then that's actually how I ended up getting into VR, was that interest in like going to clubs and all that kind of stuff. And then from there that progressed into, more dancing and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, performance wise, I did do some musicals in middle school, if we can even consider those at this, 10, 15 years later. So a lot of performance experience, which I think has helped me help develop other performers on our team and in other clubs I've helped out with, or music lessons I've had, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so like the whole idea of leadership that requires experience, and like you seem to have that in spades, and especially like in the music sector. It seems like I actually thought you were more of like you did a little bit of acting too, but it seems like it was just like music and just band, and yeah. So that's
I didn't.
You didn't do much acting?
I did some acting. No, I did some acting in middle school. I played Augustus Gloop in a Willy Wonka play, which was fun. And like a jock in High School Musical. This was like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, right? And acting was, I was okay at it. I did okay at the roles. I got some praise on the Augustus Gloop one because my accent was really funny. If there's any Germans in the audience, anyone on the team, you've heard the accent. Anyone else, trust me, it's atrocious, but it's funny. And that's the important part on our end. But I've done some of that, but acting is not my forte. It's not something I specialize in, anything like that. I don't have a ton of experience in it. I rely on other members of the team to really push on that acting level, while I can help more on like the visual sides, the artistry. I don't want to phrase it that way. The things like choreography, storytelling, and performances, all that kind of stuff. Getting emotions across, the why of a performance, that's where I can really help a team member out.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, that's really, really interesting. Okay, thanks for sharing. All right, that's a really good overview of like what you were doing before VRChat and essentially what got you into VRChat. So that's actually very interesting. Like I'll ask you a little bit more about your VRChat experience a little bit later on, but I definitely want to focus on just like you as the individual first. So how did you come up with Trudeus? That name? Where's that come from? What's the origin?
I used to be a huge Star Wars fan back in the day. I still am, but I was one of those guys that would like, I love Star Wars. I'm gonna go on Wikipedia and go down the rabbit hole for 6 hours, clicking on links, looking at all kinds of stuff like that. And during that time, I wanted some edgy Darth name for my Xbox. When I got an Xbox, I wanted some edgy name, right? And at the time, my tag was like One Husky Man or Husky Man 1, which was related to a sports team and a story from elementary school. But I wanted something edgy as like a secondary name or whatever. I'm like, what sounds good with Darth? What would go with Darth Vader and Darth Sidious? Darth Trudeus. That doesn't sound that bad. And then I didn't use it that much, actually. I ended up using the tag One Husky Man or Husky Man 1 or just Husky Man for most of my gaming life, except for one game called PlanetSide 2. And that game came to dominate a big part of my online identity and my progression as like a character. I use that term really loosely here, right? Like my identity online and all that kind of stuff. I'd really help progress that to the point where I became so like, I dived into the game. I dived into the outfit space, which is their guild system. I helped rebuild a community on that game. And then I ended up leaving that community to try and build my own. I was like 16 at the time, high school. Built that up, ended up, meeting people through that, still friends with a good amount of the guys that I played with on that. And when I ended up leaving that, I went to League and I kept the Husky Man name. And then eventually I was just more well known with the name Trudeus, and it was more unique to me just across the board. And I ended up just converting everything else over to it. So this one game, just this one identity aspect, ended up taking over. I moved it onto Steam and League of Legends, which I played for several years after getting out of PlanetSide. And just any game now, I'm Trudeus. Unless it's like, making a meme name with some friends or something like that. Then I'll do something stupider. But usually it's that.
All right, cool. All right, yeah. I always like asking about people's names because I do like to think that people who spend a significant amount of time in VRChat generally have a sense of like it's part of their identity. It's part of what makes them who they are here, and it sets them apart from other people. Even if there is someone else who has a very similarly spelled name as them, it's still there. So I like to think that people take some time to really consider that if they tend to spend a lot of time in VRChat. So it's really interesting to hear that.
I totally agree.
Yeah, like it's pretty common for people's usernames in VRChat to bleed over into other games that they've involved themselves in. So makes a lot of sense. All right, cool.
I've only met one other Trudeus out there. There's another guy on PlanetSide actually, and I met him through a collab we were doing like some kind of like competition, some community organized competition, and I think he was a broadcaster for it, something like that, and he was big in one of the other factions communities. And we met each other, and we were like, yo, sick name, bro. I was like, yeah, man, sick name. The spelling was like 2 letters off. Instead of EUS, it was IUS or something, or iOS, something like that. And it was just, I've never met, there's one other guy in VRChat named Trucedo that I've seen. And we've had kind of a similar repertoire of just like, hey, sick name, bro. Hey, sick name. But that's, that's it. It's proven to be a very unique name, which very much appreciate. I've only had like, I think maybe one website I went to set up an account on, and I tried to use my username, and they were like, "This is taken." And I'm like, "Was that me 10 years ago, or was there someone else that actually managed to roll this somehow out of their brain too? Who knows?"
Okay. Yeah, like coming up with a very unique name is, I mean, it's kind of hard to do that these days. So I think a lot of people tend to like, be very lazy about it. But I think in general, come with a name that is uniquely yours. That's pretty hard to do these days, but it's cool that you found yours. All right, so your look and feel, how you look in VRChat. How did you kind of settle on this look, and was there any sort of like previous iterations of you before this one?
E-boy.
I didn't want to think that. I didn't want to think that, but that kind of it lines up. Yeah, it lines up. Yeah,
no, 100% lines up. It absolutely lines up. I do not dodge the e-boy allegations at all. I'm fine with it. So for my appearance, initially when I got into the game, the Avi I kind of stuck with for a while. When I got into the game initially, I was working I found Club Orion. And Club Orion, like I said earlier, was hitting that club niche for me. I showed up there. Initially I got in the game, same way most people do, trolling with friends. We trolled some black cats, all that kind of stuff. Classic tale. And then I kind of explored on my own and found Club Orion. I was like, this is really cool. I was running a PlanetSide community at the time, and this kind of started consuming more of my time. I was definitely feeling burned out with the PlanetSide work and how things were going there. It was definitely an environment where I was carrying a lot of the weight to the point where it was burning me out, which is unfortunately how a lot of communities end up kind of decaying. Is it all falls on the shoulders of one or two people and goes out accordingly. And when I got into the space, I initially was just kind of exploring. I didn't want to join up with any groups. Orions were very healthy at the time. It was like 500 people on the weekends, just in public Orions, dancing, hanging out. You'd have people just throw in YouTube playlists or, Spotify jockey, or on occasion you find a live DJ. Just variety of music, variety of tones, variety of atmospheres. It was a really good environment. And through that, I was like, cool, I want to start hosting my own parties and playing music because I've got the social skills for it. I know how to organize things. Very easy to do. I ended up finding a Twitch-themed avatar to play up with that. And one thing that I like aesthetically is gloves. I really like gloves, even though I own like one pair. But I've always liked the aesthetic of them. And this avatar being, it's kind of Twitch, kind of street style or whatever, had like a robot hand that looked like a glove, and his other hand was gloved up. And I was like, this is kind of cool. And I rocked that for a while, and then eventually I joined up with a group called New Eden, and as part of that process, I ended up getting I bought an e-boy Avi that had also like big glove tattoos, and rocked that for quite a while, which is very traditional e-boy like style, covered in like Satan tats and all that kind of stuff. And from there, that ended up getting a text rework for someone did that for me, and they added in the thorns and the all that kind of stuff. They kept some aspects of the e-boy avatar I liked. The e-boy avatar had a lot of cracks in the area up here, and I really liked that aesthetic, so they kind of kept that and moved it through the whole arms and the whole body, and kind of kept going forward with that. And then when New Eden released their Vide model, the creator ended up doing another edit for me, which is actually the base of this. The only things the colors, my choice and everything, I can tweak the colors and everything. The only thing I've really added to it is the logo on my cheek, which if there's any Warhammer aficionados in the chat, they might recognize this as Slaaneish's symbol, because I am a big Warhammer fan. But past that, kind of it. The other unique thing I would say about the Avi is my back has an anchor on it, which I can't show because this is a green version. But they put a big anchor on the back to symbolize me being an anchor for the communities that I'm a part of, which was incredibly sweet to do and incredibly fucking cheesy. So goddamn cheesy, but very, very sweet.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, there's usually some sort of evolution. People tend to go through various forms of avatars as they kind of find their place in VRChat and find what actually like defines them and really what kind of like where they kind of settle in VRChat to some degree and they kind of find what they look for and how they want to look, because looking a certain kind of way in VRChat is actually pretty important to a lot of people, but when you're first starting out it's like, well, I'll just put on whatever, it doesn't matter, because like you don't really, there's no real anchor, we'll say, to VRChat when you're first starting out, So, like once you have that, you want to really you want to establish yourself in a way that's representative of you. So I can definitely see that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
So when it comes to like you being just like your personality in VRChat, I have this sense that you are simply just you. Like there is no fluff there. You are just you in the VR space. You're the same way IRL as you are in VRChat. But did the VRChat kind of like help you to establish anything about your identity that you perhaps didn't know about before, or was there, or have you always kind of knew who you are from the whole way through?
It's a good question. So I think the way I'll approach that is, back when I started running things on PlanetSide, I described my experience as putting on a mask. And Trudy at school was kind of a shy, reserved guy. A lot of this was just preconceived opinions of myself that weren't actually accurate in hindsight, but they were perceptions I had. A lot of it was absorbed from culture. Nerdy, shy guy, not attractive, doesn't get bitches, like this kind of aesthetic, this kind of like self-deprecation perspective. But when I was able to play PlanetSide, even though I was on some, often playing with, I had veterans in my group. Like it's like a MMF. It's like a kind of sort of milsim game. I had veterans in my group who were listening to what I was saying and everything. And the way I kind of approached that was like, I need to play up the confidence part, not to an egotistical level. I still need to be me. But I kind of rephrased it as like Trudeus was a mask I would put on when I was playing games or playing PlanetSide to like give proper orders and plan and give that leadership that's needed for success and give that direction. And as I got older, I realized that was bullshit, and it's actually just another part of me. There is no mask. It was always just part of me. Yeah. And as I got more into school and kind of grew as a person, I realized I started seeing examples at school where it was a lot more clearer that was the case, especially senior year, where I was just I was super happy. I was super social. I was very, generally just successful in my social environments. Classwork was a bit of a different story. I got attention for skipping class. Zero regrets on that one. But in terms of me, it was very much the case. And when I went to college, that kind of went away because I was focused on schooling and other things like that. And then once I got back into VR, it was an environment where I could kind of bring that back up. I get flashbacks to my senior year of high school, where I'm section leader of the saxophones. I'm hanging out with a lot of people. People like hanging out with me and find me comfortable to be around. They find me supportive. They find me, entertaining and engaging. All these kinds of aspects. And VR helped me bring a lot of those back out. As I've kind of explored things, I think I was burned out quite a bit from my PlanetSide experiences. Then it's not like League is good at helping you be social. So it's definitely a negative drug in that context, as much as I love League of Legends. VR definitely helped me unlock a lot of that. And that was through social environments, that was through dancing, that was through just being able to hang out with people, and that was through project work, right? Things like Luxe, where I can I feel at home in a leadership role. I don't know how that can sound, but that's just kind of how I feel. And it allows me to be a lot more genuine. And yeah, 100%, that is reflected at my job. I have become more social, more interactive with people as time has went on. Didn't help that when I started, COVID hit a month later, and that kind of made things rough, right? We all went remote. Yeah. But overall, absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so your discovery of your identity and what makes you kind of started in your senior year of high school, and you kind of just built that up, because I think a lot of people don't realize that the way that they act when they're drunk, or maybe the masks that they put on, that's still them. but they think they have to do or put on this act because that's all they know. But once you kind of accept it as part of you, then I think everything gets a lot easier because it no longer becomes an act you have to put on. It's something that you just accept and embrace. And I think it's really healthy to do that. You know, so that's awesome that you're able to do that. Good, awesome. All right.
I agree. I think there's some transient understanding of it with the personality memes out there. I used I screwed up. I used personality 5 with friend group 7 today. And now they think I'm insane, right? These kinds of memes, I think there's a transient understanding of this aspect, but the question on those memes comes back to, are these like characters you're putting on, or are these different parts of you? Right? And there's a separation in that, right? One is being fake about it.
Right.
And one is just recognizing that you can act differently in different environments because different social environments are different. There's environments where my buddy likes to talk about social pinwheel theory. I don't even know that's a real thing, but that's what we call it, where you have like a hub and spoke model and you have a hub of someone and then a wheel going off of them of friends, essentially, or acquaintances or something like that. But everyone's different in different contexts. A wheel or a pin to one person might be a hub for someone else. And there's definitely environments that I've been into where I am just there hanging out. I'm not a social animal. I'm just chilling and enjoying the vibes. And that personality, quote unquote, is going to be different than if I'm like running a practice or, you know, trying to jazz people up at a dance event or something like that. Those are different environments that require different social skills. And there's a big separation between I'm putting a character on and perceiving it that way versus I am still me. I'm just acting a certain way because the social environment calls to act a certain way.
Right. Yeah. There's a time and a place. Yeah.
Exactly.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I do want to jump into your experiences in VRChat, and just kind of I know we kind of touched on that a little bit of how you got into VRChat by trolling people. I was actually kind of curious to know. Like at what point did you get into VRChat? Like what year did you get into VRChat? Like how early are you?
November 21, I think, was around the time I got my quest. So I touched it here and there beforehand. But that was kind of where I went to a work event that November, and the environment I work in, the group I work for does and supports a lot of cool stuff around the world. And being able to go to a conference with a lot of these folks and see the real tangible benefits of what they do to help people was incredibly inspiring. And that was where I ended up making the jump in, and I dropped out of leadership in the PlanetSide community, and then I ended up just full diving into VR. Initially, I was like, I'm going to give myself time to kind of decompress for a few months, and then I started trying to boot up my own projects to, you know, try and make the world a little bit better, help people out, all that kind of stuff. They all failed, and that's okay. But that was the initial point, November 21.
Okay. All right, gotcha. And how many hours do you have in VRChat?
6,000 or something like that, maybe. I don't know. I have to bring up my Steam profile. Do you want me to?
No. Approximation. Approximation is fine.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
An excessive amount.
Yeah, I honestly think. Okay, you started in 2021, so
that would 21. Yeah.
And you have around 6,000.
4 years.
Okay. Yeah, I've been in VRChat for about 3.5 years, and I have close to 6,500. So around the same. Yeah. You know, content creators. You know, you're being involved. You're running projects. You're very, very busy. Yeah, for sure.
Busy people. Yeah.
So you got into VRChat to kind of like hang out and get into the dancing scene. So what exactly kind of, I guess, brought you into wanting to, I know you said like you're always looking to like make things better for people and improve things for people. So what exactly kind of took you away from what was going on at Club Orion to ultimately kind of get involved in other aspects of VRChat?
Yeah, I initially I was hosting stuff at Orion's and all that kind of stuff. The lap dance space, just being upfront about it.
Okay.
I ended up jumping from the Orion rave space. I've never been one to, how do I phrase this? A lot of my friends in the Orion space went into the rave space, and a lot of them run big venues now. Homie Dougie's someone that I've known for several years now. I'm not going to say I'm super close to him, but he runs a big group now. Shout out to him; he's been super successful. Aqua over at helping out with ministry has been great. Like, I was reconnected with him recently, which is super cool. So I've seen some folks go in that space. I've never cared that much for the rave space. The music I played wasn't really rave music. I was playing pop punk nights and like hip hop nights and that kind of stuff. So that progression never made sense to me to move into the rave environment. But dancing was really something I found interesting. I was fascinated by the exotic dance space and ended up diving that instead. And I've got a couple friends who have went with me from the Orion space into that other space and are still good friends with me now. And long-term friends I can rely on a lot of cool stuff, which I really appreciate. But that's how that progression ended up going.
Okay. And what was it about VRChat that kept you here? Was it the allure of being able to kind of whip up new projects and try out new things? Was it the scenes that you involved yourself with? Was it the dancing? What really kind of made you realize that VRChat was actually a good place to be?
It's a sandbox. It's like, I relate it to Minecraft, where it's like you can build whatever the hell you want in Minecraft, right? The difference is in this, you're interacting with people and you get to do some really cool stuff. And I'm a big believer that things matter if you make them matter and you give them prioritization and resources and effort. And that's what can make things really pop, right? Something that matters to me may mean absolutely nothing to someone else. And that's okay, right? Because I don't want to care about everyone else's stuff. I got too much on my plate, right? It's a very reasonable thing. But you can find value and purpose in just about anything if you're willing to think about it in the proper way. Some things like, maybe don't go find that in meth or something like that. But there are, for most things, it's okay to go down that route and find things like that. VRChat is such a creative environment. It can be a creative environment. It's such a sandbox where you can do whatever the hell you want, ranging from like the entirety of my VRChat career to trolling lobbies, to hosting my own parties in Orion, just DJing with, like, I don't know what to call it, just Spotify jockeying, just playing music from Spotify, just trying to host a good party, to, going to these dance clubs and seeing how people express themselves in different ways at them with different dance moves and trying new things and new styles and all that kind of stuff, to, eventually working on stage performance venues and pushing things that way, to like, I've hosted music theory lessons in VR, and I hosted a good amount of practices and trainings on PlanetSide too, don't get me wrong, but they're a bit of a different beast, and the intention's a little bit different, right? These are much more, that was like, here's how we run things. Here's the call outs. Here's how to move around this building. Here's what you need to know to use this gun properly. Those kinds of things. This is much more creatively open. This is some music theory. This is some conceptual work. This is how you can use body language to express an emotion. You put the pieces together, right? You create what you want out of these pieces. You innovate on them, right? You produce your own value out of that kind of thing, as opposed to more structured regimental classes of like, here's what you need to do to help the group. Here, it's very much anyone can go boot up their own project and give it a fair shake, which I frankly love. I think it's very beneficial for the game that there is so much flexibility and creativity in the game, and there's so many different ways people can express themselves, not just in a, you get to look the way you want, which is important, but you get to spend time how you want to. If you want to sit in front of a mirror and a black cat, by all means do it. If you want to go make the biggest club in the game, whatever style of club that may be, send it. Godspeed to you. Right? You're going to learn in the process, and that's super impactful and super valuable. So VRChat is just a very open book in just whatever the hell you want to do.
Yeah. It's I think people are starting. I think people in more recent years are really starting to figure that out, and I think that it became just more. It became easier for people to start to create new ideas as more features and just technology got better and avatars got flashier. And I think it started to inspire people to think outside of the box and really kind of create their own things. I imagine like back in like pre-2021, I would imagine it wasn't all that common, or there was like, it was very, very sporadic. You couldn't, it was really hard to find those sorts of things, but I think it's very, very commonplace nowadays, which is really great to see. People trying new things and being willing to fail at them, because, you know, like you said, like you tried out things in VRChat, you failed quite a lot. I've tried out things IRL and before I even touched VRChat, and I failed a lot too. So like you have to kind of have those experiences to know how to really approach, you know, creating something that's potentially successful. So yeah, makes sense. Has VRChat changed your life in any shape or form?
Yeah.
How?
6,000 hours of it.
Yeah. Yeah, how so?
I guess the best a lot of my time is spent on Discord, more than it should, especially with Checkpoint coming out today. Looking at those numbers, I was like top 0.11 of messages sent on Discord or something like that, and like top 0.2% of voice calls. I need to get a life. That's not this. And it's been really confidence building. And it's been a great sandbox to learn and experiment in. And I've just learned so much as like a person and as a leader through testing different things, going through different trials and tribulations and trials and errors, and meeting people and seeing how they operate, whether it's like a performer or, any kind of performer, musician, dancer, whatever he'll have you. Different people and how they like troll even on that aspect, because there's different people that come up with creative ways to do things, which I appreciate. Not that I actively endorse trolling public lobbies. I would never do such a thing. But I digress. Those kinds of things. And then leadership is a big one for me too, being able to try different leadership things and learn from experiences and test out these projects. That's something I've tried to do with my team as well, of giving small projects to my captains, be like, hey, you want to learn? Like, here you go. This is a project. It's okay if you mess up. You're going to learn on it, and that's the goal, right? Get some experience under your belt to help develop you as a leader more. In terms of like social skills, I've gotten a lot better socializing, or at least I would argue unlocked that a little bit more. Like I said, I think that kind of went dormant in me during my college years, and then VRChat's helped bring it back out. I would also say just confidence boosting in general. Having relationships in this game is obviously different than IRL, but there are benefits, that kind of thing. And I have gained a lot of self-confidence in my like appearance and my skill sets and my abilities, and just who I am as a person, being genuine and caring for others and all that kind of stuff through experiences in VRChat. To the point where like we have a big get together every year, the Luxe Nova and some other people in the area and want to come out or whatever, just some friends at 2DCon every year. And we just go and hang out and have a good time and break up into little smaller groups to go do different things. It's a phenomenal experience. So being able to bridge that gap into IRL too has been super, super cool. It's just so many ways it's helped. So many ways.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. So I do want to touch on that little bit of it seems like it was a very brief history, but of like what you first did when you first got into VRChat, and I don't want to harp on this too much, of course, but everyone has their starting point, and like yours was trolling in lobbies and such. Like, I guess at that point in your life, what was really your motivation for wanting to do that sort of thing, despite being someone who feels very comfortable in leadership positions, like after like doing the planet side stuff for so long? I'm curious as to like what kind of made you kind of start there with VRChat.
Yeah, so I might be saying or giving the wrong impression on this. I didn't troll all that much. It was just the starting point.
Okay, yeah.
We did it maybe like 4 or 5 times. Like that was it.
Okay.
And it wasn't like going around crashing lobbies. It was like we have a silly little seal avatar that can stack on top of each other. We go around playing music or something. It was that kind of trolling.
Okay.
And you actually already said it, planet side. So after an op, we'd be stressed because a lot of the ops were pretty intense, a lot of last second changes. Hey guys, I need you to respawn and go here. I need you to go there. We've got to hold this for 15 seconds. There's a ton of guys trying to flood in. Land your shots. We do the best we can. There's a lot of stress like that. There's a lot of hell yeah, we did it in that last second cap, and a lot of fuck, kind of the mix on that. And we wanted to find ways to de-stress after the fact. And this was during COVID times for this round of PlanetSide. I did PlanetSide from 2012 to 2014, and then League from 2014 to 2016-ish. Then Stellaris was my main game for a while because I love strategy games. And then 2020 is when I got back into PlanetSide. And that's where a lot of that more experience, I was able to refine a lot of my experience and leadership. And in that space, a lot of it was, okay, well, what are we going to do tonight after ops? Because you want to de-stress. And going around in VRChat was one of the things we did. Some people play Minecraft. I'd boot up Stellaris sometimes. Sometimes we'd go play League of Legends. I don't know why we thought that would de-stress us, but we would do it. It would vary on the night and what we're kind of wanting to do. I would boot up Lil Jon streams at the time because it was COVID. So Lil Jon was streaming on Twitch every weekend. And I would just like play his stuff on the other monitor too. I would be going around doing whatever the hell in some game we're playing. And then I got curious about some of the other stuff in the game. Just, there's more to this game than trolling, I can tell. And then I kind of explored around and found Club Orion. I was like, this is actually such a good vibe, even in an empty lobby. Like, the design is very well done. AC Chosen's been phenomenal with that world. I absolutely credit to me being in the game and doing everything I do. And just, it kind of grew on from there. I realized pretty early on that there was a lot you can do in this game. I didn't realize how much, and I still don't realize how much because I'd go insane if I did. Just way too much in this game. It's great, but that's kind of how it started. I very quickly realized there's something special in this game. There's something special in places like Orion's and clubs and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of like I said earlier, I'm kind of politically inclined, and there's an economic theory, or economic theory is, I guess, the way I can phrase it, called spontaneous order. And it's the idea that given space, people will naturally kind of self-organize and start self-production. And you can see this across the board in mod communities, where people love a product, but they want to make it better or different, and they will just learn skills to produce it. There's no pay involved. There was no reward outside of just they want to make it, and they make it, and it brings a lot of joy to other people. And I think VRChat is a great example of spontaneous order, where a lot of people just produce things because they want to produce things, right? There's no major incentive to setting up your own venue of any type. There's no incentive really to go DJ outside of like, it's fun, right? But even there, like, there's a million other ways in the world you can have fun, but people choose to do this instead. And that really spoke to me. I very quickly realized this is an environment where whatever project I wanted to attempt, this is a good space to try it.
Yeah, totally agreed. I mean, that's exactly why I started this podcast, and I realized very quickly, like a week or two into being in VRChat, that this was that you could do a whole lot more. There was so much more that could be done here. And I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to try this. I like having conversations with people, and it was realizing not just that you could do so much here, but just the kinds of personalities that are here are very kind of. I think people are very surface level a lot of times in VRChat. So I wanted to kind of be able to dive deeper into like people's personalities, what they think about, what matters to them, what they care about. And that's why I do this. So right on the same page as you. Yeah.
And I think there's a large element to that too that ties into something we were talking about earlier, and I think there's a movement in the overall social environment, at least in America, and I would say in other countries too. And I can't speak for the space total, but like on the internet in the West, there's been this trope the last decade or so of it's cool to not care, right? The cool kids don't care. And, what's the point of putting an effort and all that kind of stuff? And I think the last few years, especially in the music space, we've seen a pushback against that, where you're seeing musicians come up with more and more creative music videos. Sabrina Carpenter's Man Child video comes to mind, where it is so poignant in what it's trying to say and the message it's sending. And I just don't see that coming out of music 5 or 10 years ago to the same level, to the same. I mean, as I say it, I'm thinking of like Lady Gaga and what she was producing at the time, and like some of the stuff she was saying. So there are other counterexamples of that. But I think overall, there's definitely a tone change of people really trying to push messages across. Kendrick Lamar's halftime show comes to mind as well, where it was very politically poignant, very much trying to send a specific message, and I knew what audience it was targeting. And the audience it wasn't targeting didn't get it, which I love. I feel there's definitely a big push. I think that bleeds into VRChat as well. And VRChat enables people who want to push for something better because they just want to do it. They don't just want to go around and drink every day. Don't get me wrong. I love doing it. I love drinking, but they want to go for more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed. So how do you separate work from play in VRChat? And obviously, I say work. I use work loosely. Because I'm sure, yeah. So like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it varies. It's about knowing boundaries, and I think this goes to a benefit that we have internally too, where I'm head manager of Observa. I'm not on the Radiance team at all. I have no control or power over the Radiance team. People still respect me because of me. Thank you, team, for respecting me for me and for the position I have. However, I can't go telling a Radiance member what to do. It's not appropriate, right? Outside of I'm a management member, outside of that part of the relationship. But if I'm at Radiance, I'm off the clock essentially. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I'm going to go do insane stuff, of course, but it means I can relax and other people are on at that time. And if I'm a problem, they can tell me what's up. This came up a little bit actually at the last Radiance event we had, where me and some friends were talking a lot about some political stuff. And one of our staff members came up and was like, "Hey guys, what are you talking about? This is so what planet is this from or whatever? Where's what's the content?" Because Radiance is in lore, so they've been pushing more lore over there, which has been phenomenal to see, and I really enjoyed it. And my response was "Oh, we're just all really high right now. We're all having the same vision. It's all good. We're just let us trip in the corner. It's all good." And she was like, okay. She told me later it stressed her out, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I get that, but it's the chill. It's that opportunity to kind of de-stress, right? Different environments also play into that. If I'm at a different club where I don't have leadership responsibility or something, that I can be a little bit more relaxed. If I'm just hanging out with the boys, my tight group of guys, I can be really open. It just varies. It's really about boundaries and understanding where those lines need to be. Just because you work with a lot of people and they're very good friends does not mean you need to just cut loose with them all the time. Right. And I think, especially in VRChat, that can get very messy very quickly and cause a lot of issues. And it's really beholden on the individual to recognize, okay, what's the gains of really cutting loose and making it play here versus possible risks associated with that? Am I making team members' lives worse? So I'm making them work more and all this kind of stuff. There's balancing acts, that kind of thing. It's something to be conscious and aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alrighty. So you said you've been interested in dancing for a good portion of your life, but it just wasn't kosher among your friends. But once you got into VRChat, you really started to dabble into that. So, how has that been for you in terms of being a dancer in this space? And what have you learned?
I love dancing. It's just so cathartic. It's so fun. There's so many ways to do it. There's so many styles. There's so many. I'm very much. I approach it very. I want it to be fun. I like putting humor in my dancing. I really enjoy humorous stuff. Our Luxe Lunacy show at Observer was my favorite show we've done. I add a lot of comedic effects to my avatars. I use cloning when I'm dancing a lot of the time. So I'll do things like I'll freeze my clone and then I'll pick it up and carry it around by its chest or something like that. Something silly, doing bits like that. I really enjoy that. A lot of the music I choose is more on the comedic side, even if it's at one of these exotic venues. I'll still choose something kind of left field, out of the blue. I love things like Ninja Sex Party. I love dancing. And Tom Cardy's great. A lot of the comedic stuff. Dancing is obviously the cliche is a way to express yourself, a way to, carry yourself through. I think dancing also gives you, the way to describe it is a social environment to work in, where you are the center of attention to some degree, and that gives you social, I don't want to say power, but it's empowering, I think is a better way to phrase it, right? I'm thinking of You know, if I'm thinking of a go-go dancer at like Radiant or something like that, like they exercise this very well, or because they're the dancer and the kind of center attention, they can interact with the audience in a very comfortable way and a very confident way that they wouldn't. I can think of several dancers off my head that are just shy beings and just wouldn't engage that way without being up on the stage. And I think it's very empowering in that way. And it's a blank canvas to try out different stuff and mess stuff up. But have fun doing it and do new moves, and obviously it's good exercise too.
Hell yeah. Do you get stage fright at all?
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's rare nowadays, and it depends where I'm at. If I'm getting up on the observer stage, I'll get a little bit, depending on who's in the room. When we did Rain Dance, I was definitely nervous, because there's just a lot of very impressive, skilled people that we had the pleasure of performing for. But a regular audience, they love us, and I love the support they give us, and I feel super comfortable being in front of them, talking, all that kind of stuff. If I'm dancing at a new venue, I will get stage fright, but I usually turn it into some bravado. Like, I want to show what I can do, and kind of push it into that route instead. And I'm able to reframe it from like nerves into, no, I'm good at what I'm doing. I'm gonna pop off here. We're gonna have a good time, and I know I'm gonna impress some people in this room because they haven't seen me before. And from what I've been told, I'm pretty decent at what I do. So there's that aspect to it. Yeah.
Cool. So I do want to ask one more question related to VRChat before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's chit chat. Do you consider VRChat? Well, I've heard you use the term game with VRChat, but do you consider VRChat a game or something else?
It's a social platform. It's a social platform. That's what it is, or a sandbox. Either way, it's not like there are games in VRChat, obviously. And I think you can look at VRChat as a game, but that is not because it is a game. It is because it is a sandbox that you are choosing to define it as a game. There are obviously gamification elements to it. There are aspects to it. I have met some people who view it as a game. They tend to be pretty red flaggy, I'm not going to lie, and say some really sus shit, and have a very sus opinion and perspective on things. That's not to say everyone that thinks of it that way is that case. That's like, it just depends. If you view it as a game and your perspective is I just hop on Black Cat or pop into Black Cat once every 2 weeks, I just kind of vibe out and shout people, and that's the game for me. Sick. If you're having fun and you're not hurting people, Godspeed to you, right? But I think it's like how all squares are rectangles, but all rectangles are squares, right? I wouldn't consider it a game. People can consider it a game because I think it's a sandbox that they choose to describe as a game. Like, I choose to describe it as a social network or a social platform.
All right. Yeah, that works well for me. All right. So,
sick.
Yeah. So I do want to jump into kind of like a little bit of backstory, kind of talking about what came before Luxe Nova, just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. I am interested in painting a picture of what came before, so to kind of like people to understand like what came after in terms of like your involvement with New Eden. So I would love to hear a little bit about your personal experience with the group, because I believe that was the first group that you got linked up with that was related to performance or the performing arts in VRChat, more or less. Would you say?
Yeah, it was. Yes, and it was actually the first group I took a leadership role in VRChat. Intentionally so. So when I got into VR, I made a promise myself that I'm not going to dive into leadership stuff unless an opportunity really shows itself. And I was I got offers, at least one for a dance captain slot at a club before. There were several rave groups going on in the Orion days that, were interested, if I approached them, I'm sure they would have taken me in, and I could have become a leadership role there. I never had an interest in it. I was just kind of waiting for the right thing, and I was on a quest that every guy in the audience can probably attest to, finding a good male avatar in this game. It's so hard. It is so hard, man. It's so hard to find some good shit in this game. The boys out there. And when I was going through that process, I ended up discovering New Eden. I was very impressed with the production quality of the Discord server. It was very professional, very clean. It was clearly thought out. There was a lot of strengths to the server. I made some comments and they were like, really appreciate the professionalism, yada, yada, yada. And then as time kind of went on, they started poking me about booting up a venue. They had ideas. I was, giving my thoughts as someone who was in the dancer space and had, some leadership experience. And eventually they wanted me to come on to the team to help build a dance hall venue, is what we ended up calling it down the line. A stage performance venue, whatever term you want to use, right? And the basic premise was pretty straightforward. Stage performances, obviously. And the heavy lifting would be done by the world. So all we would need to do on the personnel side is find good dancers, which VRChat is filled with. There are phenomenal performers in this game that do really cool stuff and have really good musicality and understanding, even without formal training, which is super impressive to me. The amount of people I've been able to help teach who have an understanding of like musicality without knowing they have it is very cool. And this project kind of progressed. We started bringing other people on. I initially said no to joining it. And then we had a back and forth about what my role specifically looked like and what I wanted to do, which was I wanted to be boots on ground kind of guy. I wanted to be running practices. I wanted to be running the show itself. I wanted to be doing those aspects. And they were cool with that. They did the administrative logistics. And then over time, I started taking more into those responsibilities and eventually became head of management of what at the time was called Evergarden. And we had a very successful run, all things considered. Within a year, we were performing with VCAT. We were performing for Rain Dance Immersive 2023. We were on TVRS, the virtual reality show, FIA's show. We had a very successful run across the board. And then we ended up taking a summer to kind of just focus on internal building, testing out different skill sets, building our performers up, all this kind of stuff. And then we had our big Darkwood show, which was kind of our proof of concept of a new story-based themed character show that we were producing, which ended up being the format for Luxe Lunacy, and then we innovated on it in Voidfall, and then around that Darkwood time was when we ended up separating from New and creating Luxe Nova separately. Obviously, if there's a separation, things didn't work out. Obviously, that's generally how it goes, right? But I don't think a lot of folks on the team look back at our general successes and are like, that was bad. Like, a lot of us have a lot of pride in what we did during that time frame and the work we put in and the art we were able to produce. And to sound a bit egotistical on this, we do feel that a lot of the growth of stage performances in the game came from us kind of innovating in that space. We saw other venues pop up in that time frame doing similar things to what we were doing. I don't think, personally speaking, very few understood the mechanics that we were pushing for to make it work, and kind of that secret sauce magic that we were able to kind of create with our internal culture and how we run things, which is the same culture we have now. But definitely there was a lot of growth at that time of those kinds of things.
Okay. Yeah, it's really, really good to hear just kind of like a little bit of like what your experience there was like, because I remember like hearing about New Eden and Evergarden. Like I remember hearing about that, and I was still very, very fresh in the VRChat space. And that to me just seemed really, really interesting. I never had a chance to go to one of their shows or, at the time, but I do remember hearing about it and being very, very fascinated by it, because like the space having such a level of performing arts caliber in the VR space it's so risky to even try to do that in this space in general. And I'm sure we'll get into that in depth when we're getting into the Luxe Nova aspect of what we're talking about. But it just seemed really, really fascinating to me. And, I heard about them for I was hearing about them for a very, very significant period of time. And then it just kind of like, then I just wasn't hearing anything about them at all. So I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the drama of it all. I'm personally just very interested in knowing it was very good to hear your experience with doing events and putting it all together. And it's also really good to hear that you believe that people who were involved in that at that time actually take pride in that and the creative work that you all did. So I don't want to spend too much time there, but I just really wanted to kind of just briefly kind of talk a little bit about that, and I guess we can kind of like use that to kind of get into the Luxe Nova side of things. I want to ask, after parting ways, essentially, how were you able, or how, not just you, but how was everyone involved or who kind of moved away, managed to kind of get together to form something that was brand new, that has been going for a year now already? So
yeah, I think the secret is that it essentially, while on the branding looked brand new, it wasn't brand new. Internally, things were designed to operate pretty independently. And New Eden had their focus on avatar creation. That was their business, right? And we were designed to operate pretty independently, outside of like the occasional poke or the occasional, hey, we're doing a big event, we need to, kind of adjust, and all that kind of stuff. Is my play space being weird? I feel like I just spaced down or something.
Yeah, you spaced down a little bit. Yeah, it's all right.
Weird. My tracking's drifted down just a touch. It's very odd.
No worries.
And from that, when we parted ways, it meant the transition was easy, quote unquote, I would say. All of our structures were in place, and everything was kind of still running the same ship. We were able to run events in February, or actually it was January. We had to boost them down like a week or two because organizing people during the holidays is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Just because it's really hard. It's really hard. No flame to anyone. Like, obviously, it's the holidays, of course, but it's a struggle bus to get things moving that way during that time frame. And everything, like, the big issue was just branding, essentially. What is our theme now? What identity do we want to go for? What direction we want to go for? We landed on like an Art Nouveau style. We landed on color schemes. We had our media guys produce, shout out to Dan for doing so much legwork on this, produce all our logos and all this kind of stuff, and kind of move that way. So, like, realistically speaking, we lost like a month, but that month was still used very efficiently. And it would have been around the same schedule had we not parted ways. We probably would have done another event in January. That probably would have been our next time, depending on burnout on the team and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't really delay anything on our end. And internally, we had, I think, out of like 120 some people, I think we had like one person, two people leave, and then they both eventually rejoined. So it was a very smooth transition that we had, outside of the crunch of, okay, this week we're voting on a theme, this week we're voting on a name, this week we're voting on color schemes, like that kind of aspect, that process.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So from what I'm hearing, it seems like you didn't really lose much of anybody.
So sorry.
Like from like the from the aspect that you were running on your side of things, you basically pretty much everybody came around eventually.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. That's actually very interesting to hear. I did not imagine it played out that way, but that's actually pretty cool. And I can see why like you all are so strong, given like what you've put together in just a year's time. And I'm in your Discord, and I've looked around. I've read up on stuff, and it's really impressive to see. So I suppose we should just kind of jump into the Luxe Nova side of like what came after. After everything, because I think people are very interested in that. I'm very, very interested in that for sure. So based on where you guys were previously, did anything shift in terms of your core mission of running Luxe Nova, or did that shift at all now that you essentially were an independent organization that now had your own means of, running your own shows?
Yeah, I'm not really, honestly. There were things, of course, we reviewed. We reviewed everything. Like, everything got a look over, everything got a reviewed all, like, some of the teams have mission statements and specific goals and everything. We reviewed all that kind of stuff, and we kind of started diving into what we needed, and that's been an iterative process, meaning we're kind of making it up as we go, which has been fun and challenging and a good amount of stress in a good way. But our core has always been do cool shit. in my mind. That's the way I kind of phrase it. And I can't speak too much for the other teams, but for Observer Site specifically, our generally the same ethics we had at Evergarden are still carrying us forward. Nothing has really changed. Just kind of came up during our rain dance stuff where Fernanda was there, the creator of Go Go Loco, and he asked us about, have you heard of Evergarden? And and I was like, yeah, we're the team that kind of, we were the team for it. And like that kind of idea, because he was like, this is like tit for tat the same, and I'm like, it's because we're the team. Like, we didn't really change our formula or anything like that. There are things, of course, we've tried to improve on. Comet Bits specifically, shout out to the Comets and my Comet captains, Ayumi and Lambted. They've been phenomenal at creating those theatrical like the audience interaction Comet Bits you see on stage. For those that watch Voidfall, that was the trolley problem, as we called it, which was the 2 tubes where we killed somebody on stage. And I got feedback on that was phenomenal. And the cage, where we had a cage come down where people would like cut the wire and it'd like fall down. It was like, oh, are we gonna actually kill them? Who knows? Kill the audience member. They come up with those and everything. It's been great. So there are things we've innovated on and tried to push forward on. We've gotten a lot of good world support, which has been great. So we've been able to push boundaries like that, having Malum, our black hole during Voidfall, be physically part of the world and having a bunch of toggles for that. Shout out to the world team for that, specifically Sky Sage. Super helpful. Sky, I think, spent 16 hours over 3 days just following my notes that I gave her from management on like what this needs to look like and everything, and she knocked it out of the park. Made 2 different introductions for the black hole based on 2 different performances we were opening the show with and everything. Super helpful. So yeah, I mean, like ethics wise, production wise, a lot of our systems are the same. A lot of our goals are the same. We just want to make cool stuff and keep pushing the bounds of VR as much as we can. Open as many doors as we can for our team to give them cool, unique experiences. We recognize we're in a very special and privileged spot right now where we have so many opportunities ahead of us and so many cool things to do. And I try and really push like, hey, this is not something you're going to get at other places. Let's take these opportunities, right? Balancing it out with regular shows and making sure we're still doing our bread and butter while also grabbing these opportunities as they come up.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about any of those opportunities?
I mean, you've seen a lot of them this year. GearFest right off the bat was super, super heartening. GearFest was really one of those moments where we were like, oh, like this is something special, right? We've always had an understanding of it. And if I remember right, we did our opening show before GearFest. And us opening up our Observa show that weekend and actually immediately being full and having a small queue was super heartening. Like GearFest, us opening up for our 8-hour instance we were running on that Saturday and immediately filling up was incredibly heartening, and it showed like not just our community showing up, but other communities were interested in what we were doing and how we were running things and all this kind of stuff, which was super heartening. Rain Dance Immersive was phenomenal this year, super stressful, but super phenomenal. It was so fun being able to go into competition like that and really push things forward, try cool stuff. It was a ton of stress, so shout out to the team for all the work they put in for that. And then, of course, meeting such cool people across VRChat that are doing such cool things in the art spaces, performance spaces. It was super fascinating, super wonderful. Trevor Project, of course, being able to have Radiance basically run the opening event, that was great, and being able to contribute in other ways. Like our interview during that was a ton of fun. Recently, we've got VCAT tomorrow. Literally, in 2 days, we're doing a collab with VCAT, which is super exciting. In one of their worlds, we have our own booth and everything. I think 2 weeks ago, we helped out with the VR charity event. Great branding on that, just calling it the VR charity event. Phenomenal branding. That was great. We helped raise 50 grand for that. And had a lot of support. There was one person who they had heard that Ringmaster was going to be there, which is one of our team member Jinx's characters, and she had made a shirt saying Ringmaster's biggest fan. And I was just like, wow. I got stopped at a door during that event, and like, I just want to say, like, you guys are great, and it's so cool meeting you. And I'm like, this is like actual fan stuff. Like, this is so heartwarming. Like, this is so different. I love this. This is great. Yeah, and we've got plenty of opportunities coming up. I can't go into them right now. Outside of like Gear Fest, we're going to be doing Gear Fest when it comes out soon in January, because I think it's already been announced. But there's other things we'll definitely be doing this year. I don't want to go into too many details, mostly because I don't know them yet, because we haven't made the schedule for next year. But we have a lot of opportunities, and we're taking time and being very thorough with it to figure out what is the best balance with the team. Based on what the team wants, and also what's beneficial for the group as a whole, gives the best opportunities, so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. So in terms of, it doesn't seem like you all had to really work very hard to reestablish culture, because it seemed like that culture was already there from previously. Everything just kind of carried over, and you just continued to make cool shit, which makes a lot of sense. So, but I kind of wonder if the quote unquote special sauce that you all use is how deeply lore entrenched Luxe Nova is. Like I looked over some of your documents. A lonely star that tells like the founding story of like finding observe a star, the letter to a friend, a brief history of Luxe Nova. You know, it's basically a magical space station that's powered by two twin stars. Like all these very, very key aspects that make up Luxe Nova as an organization. Would you say that your secret sauce is just creating those storylines that kind of holds everything together and is generally agreed upon throughout the entire organization?
So I would say no.
Okay.
For now. I think our secret sauce is it's people. The people that join our team are there because they legitimately love what we do in one way, shape, or form. And that varies depending on what team you're on, right? You really like photography, you really like writing lore, you really like stage performing, you really like entertaining people as like a floor host or an actor, so on and so forth. That the work ethic people have. Like, we'll go on break. We'll say literally a ban on work internally. Like, we're not organizing anything, not that kind of stuff. And within a day, our office channel has 7 people in it working on avatars for the next set or something like that. After we just put a break in, people just want to create. We're just blessed with a ton of really talented, creative individuals that want to push boundaries and try new stuff and take risks and push themselves. And they get inspired by each other to do that kind of thing. We have a ton of support structures internally, a creative assistance chat to ask for help, a ton of creative resources. We've got a channel just for dumping assets in, or just like sharing links to assets, and there's like 2,400 posts in there, just over since we made the server since last November. Just tons of that kind of stuff. There's a thread just for custom made assets that team members have made for the team to use at XYZ thing. Great example of that would be during Gearfest last year. There was a bit of a miscommunication, and we were rostering our own go-go dancers. The world had shader mode in place, so you could see a hologram of the go-go dancers from the main instance. Mm-hmm. We didn't realize this until we got in there and started practicing, and we're like, oh shit, well, we just rostered half our team to go-go. What do we do? And within 16 hours, we had designed, our team members had designed and built a podium and put it on a VRC Fury item to give to people, and all they had to do was drag it on their avatar, and it was able to pop down a podium below them, so they could go wherever the hell they wanted to. Stuff like that. That's our secret sauce. The lore pushes one of our newer goals, I guess. We were going towards a transitionary phase towards the end of our time with New Eden, which you saw in Darkwood, which was more immersiveness in lore. And we were using New Eden's lore at the time and New Eden's characters. Everything in Darkwood had to be related to Delora in some way, shape, or form. And we all built out with that. My character was called Trox, and he grew up in the swamps nearby or something like that. And there were a couple other characters that were fungus themed, and we kind of played off each other as a bit. Now we have our own lore that we get to build out, and the lore is designed to support the venues, not overtake it. And shout out to Lore Team for being on top of this. It's designed in a way that pretty much whatever our team wants to do, we can find a lore reason that it works, which is super, super helpful to the team, to your point of the immersiveness of it. right? These worlds that we're in, the fact that Observa is powered magically by a star called Observa. And that means it's technically like a character you can interact with, which we really played on during Voidfall, where we had Malum, who was a black hole, come in and be its own character paired up with Omen, the villain for Observa. Right. And they're trying to consume Observa. So you've got these new characters kind of showing up, and it feels immersive. And it adds a lot of elements to it. And as I said, the lore is designed not to be in a you need to know it to engage kind of way, but as like a flavoring on top. You can still enjoy an Observa show without knowing all the lore and experiencing it. But if you do want to know the lore, you can look around and find tidbits of lore or ask our characters in the world, hey, what about this or that? Chartreuse might be walking around, or Noel, or Huel, or, eventually once the founders of Radiance reveal themselves and start coming out, you can talk to them over there as well, right? So right now I would say no, it's still people, and I think it will probably always be people, but I think one thing that differentiates us is that lore and immersiveness you're talking about. I've been told that we're the only venue. I had a friend who had seen several venues attempt lore building like what we've done, and they've said we're the only ones that have done it actually successfully, which that's a source of one, small sample size. Yeah. But if we're doing it right, we're doing it right,
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you're absolutely right. Like, you don't need to know the lore to really enjoy the show, and that was proven very single-handedly when Ender so kindly invited me to the Observer opening. So that was really, really amazing and a really wonderful opportunity. I'm very grateful that she invited me to basically collab with her and film alongside of her and co-stream alongside of her for that event. Really, really amazing. I was so impressed. Truly it's been a very long time since I've been very much floored by a visual performance in VR. There have been a couple of moments throughout my time here that has happened, but I would say that was the most impressive pushing of limits and graphical boundaries, and also just the innate performance of it, the artistic aspects of it, and how diverse those were from all of the people who were participating. That to me was just like phenomenal. And I was very much, I was very, very impressed by it. And I've told you this. I'll say it on stream. Like, I'll say it for the podcast. Like, if I were not doing what I'm doing as a podcast creator, or even just as a streamer, as a full-time streamer, I would have applied to Luxe Nova already. I would have already done it because I love what you guys are doing. Like, I'm an actor. I'm a trained actor. I've done performance stuff. I would love to be involved with that, but I have too much going on, even just as my own one person team, aside from my mods and people who help me out in my server and stream, whatever. But I love what you guys do, so
appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, so I wish that I could, and maybe perhaps at some point I can be a part of it in other ways, but we'll have to talk about that another time. But now that I've gushed, we can kind of get back to actually talking about like what you do. And you said that you are the head of management of Luxe Nova's Observa team. So can you kind of explain what that entails?
Yeah, I think the best way to encapsulate it is to explain our structures in general. Plus, I just like talking about logistics. I'm a fucking nerd for it. So our structures are pretty straightforward. We don't do vanity rolls or anything like that internally. If you are speaking for Observa, if you are a luminary, you are a luminary. It's a stage performer. Or if you're a comet, one of our actors, for a comment. We don't bother with vanity rolls. We don't find them effective. They don't serve a purpose, right? I understand a lot of clubs do official dancers, all that kind of stuff. I've been official dancer at clubs. It's just not something we feel value in, right? And then above that, you have the captains. And the captain's job, on Observa, we currently have 2 luminaries and 2 comet captains. We'll soon be getting a 3rd luminary captain. And their job is to guide their respective parts of the team. Give them support, do check-ins every cycle, which I'll go into cycles in a second, and how our scheduling works. do check-ins with them, run practices, give them support, connect them with resources as needed, right? Hey, I don't know how to do this thing. Okay, I don't either. As the captain, I don't know how to fucking do this either. But this person's a Unity god, and they can help you out, right? Go talk to them and make those connections and facilitate the growth of the performers. And making sure they're parts of the work together as captains, make sure they're parts of the team are running effectively. My job is to make sure that they have support. They're feeling good. They're keeping on top of their tasks. They feel emotionally supported. They get all the resources they need to help facilitate. If there's a hard situation, I'm the one that usually takes that plate up, unless they want to handle it, which sometimes they do opt into, like, I want to take on this challenging moment because it's beneficial for my growth. And I'm like, yeah, I ain't complaining about that. Godspeed, soldier. Godspeed. You do that, right? But of course, I'm always there to step in for hard conversations as needed. And kind of keep the things going. I'm also in charge of general strategic direction, which is not just me deciding this is what we're doing. It's not at all how we operate internally. The captains obviously have a lot of say in kind of the direction we want to go and everything. We do a lot of voting. We also get a lot of feedback from the team. We're very feedback oriented in general, which goes back to our secret sauce, I would say. Right now, one of my captains, Ayumi, she made a massive internal survey that we put out a few days ago that just goes through all kinds of topics of culture, burnout management, general feedback, specific parts of the teams, and it's on type form, so you get to choose. Like I chose I am luminary in management, so I got questions related to those two things. And she's gonna put that all together, figure out what the team's feeling, right? Like, hey, were there too many collabs this year or not? All that kind of stuff. So strategic direction is something I'm in charge of as well, and making those kinds of decisions, and then working with the other members of management and head managers to give general strategic direction for Luxe Nova and evaluate opportunities for the team. Is this worth our time? Is it not? Right? We've got plenty of collab opportunities. A lot of them just aren't worth the logistical time and effort to, work, right? Like, we don't run like a little pop-up venue like this. It takes a month to produce the shows that we produce. The timeline is not because we're lazy. It's because it legitimately takes a lot of time to do it without burning ourselves out regularly, right? And even then, we usually have staff members who will do an event and then skip an event because they just want more time. Because a performance for Luminaries takes 20, 30 hours of work. Like, that's a part-time job for a week. That's a lot of time, and that's not counting things like going to practices. So giving that strategic direction and supporting the team as much as I can is the crux of what I do.
Okay. And I do. So are there managers for every team? And I know I do want to get into like each individual team. So actually, let's just go ahead and jump into that. So I know there are 5 teams. There's the Observer team. There's the Radiance teams. There's the Operations team. There's the Media team and the Creative team. So can you tell us about each one of those teams and how they all kind of break down, and I guess how do you interface with those teams as since I know that you are predominantly involved with Observer, but to me, I don't know, but maybe I'm just a little bit confused. You seem to be integrated into all aspects that go on with Luxe Nova, so if you could kind of talk about that a little bit, as much as you'd like to, actually. This is we have no qualms about talking about our internal structures. Okay. So we have 5 teams, as you said, departments, teams. We use the terms kind of interchangeably, which can be confusing because I might say the Luxe Nova team or the creative team, right? Luxe Nova team is everybody, all 150 plus staff we have. Creative team is just like the 10 people on creative, right? I interact with teams as I need to, essentially, which I think is part of why we've been successful on the management side, dodging burnout. I don't think we've had a management member actually burn out before. They burn out on specific things, for sure. I don't like doing XYZ thing, which is understandable. But we've never had really a management member burn out, which is a good thing because that means we're balancing well. We've had people step down for other reasons if they want to or whatever. So from my perspective, there are certain parts of teams I need to talk to. For example, operations is broken into the dev team, which deals with our online portal and coding and a lot of that, or, the ARGs, when we do ARGs, that kind of stuff, right? And a lot of data management. And then we have the event ops team, which handles flow of events
and those kinds of things, actually making decisions on the night, signups and all that kind of stuff is their purview internally. Then we also have the stage tech team, which handles like lights and visuals and all that kind of stuff. I don't almost ever need to talk to dev. The only time I talk to the dev team is when I need data for a town hall, which we have after every cycle. And they will fancy the data up for us a little bit and have fancy ways of pulling data that then we can process and be like, this is, we had this many new people come through the venue this cycle, and this many returning, and we had this many crashes and these kinds of things. Event ops, I need to talk to here and there, right? Stage techs, I am intimately familiar with that team at this point, because if they are overwhelmed or don't have enough support or something like that, or their timeline's screwed, that means my team doesn't get visuals. And I need those visuals so my performers can perform, right? So when we did a big schedule rework in June after Trevor Project and Rain Dance, because it was the same month, plus Radiant had a themed event at the time, like a light themed event, and we were just really burned out. And I went through several parts of the team trying to figure out what the best schedule was across the board, very project manager style. And the biggest meeting I had was with the entirety of the stage tech team, where I sat down with them and said, okay, how much time frame do you guys need to produce these assets with the current system using DMX and all this kind of stuff? What time frames are we looking at? What burnout level are you guys at? Let's get this sorted, because you guys are the choke point on the team right now. I don't mean that as a negative. I mean that as like, this is the pressure point that is the limiting aspect of the system, right? It's just the reality of it. They were stressed and understaffed. We've been able to fix a lot of that since, which is good. So there's parts of the teams I just don't go talk to. I don't go talk to lore team outside of like their captain in case I need to. The acting part of the creative team, I obviously interact with a good amount, because I need the actors in my world and in the venue to do stuff, and my team needs to work with them, so it's relevant. A rundown on each team real quick. Creative does world design, lore production, and avatar production and management. Avatars being characters, not like if I made a performance, I'd make my own avatar for it, right? But our characters, Omen, the villain of Voidfall, or Vasia, the villain for Radiance, right? On Voidfall side for Radiance, Omen was ours at Observa. Or our three founders, Heal, Chartreuse, Noel for Observa, doing that kind of stuff. And then, development of Radiance's characters as those come down the line next year. Operations does essentially what I just described, right? Data work and development, event management and moderation, and server management, Discord server management, and then lights, visuals. When the lights are going on in Observa, there's someone in the back pressing a keyboard to make all that go down, and handling all those kinds of things. If you ever see the host talk to Observa, and Observa flashes red lights or green lights, that's the stage tech pressing the button to make Observa respond that way, right? And can translate for the star, quote unquote. Play that aspect up. Radiance team runs the Radiance venue, of course, with their Astrals and their Celestials. Astrals being their floor hosts, and Celestials being their go-go dancers. Observa has Comets and Luminaries. Comets are our acting team. Luminaries are our stage performers. And then media has a variety of roles. They just did a big rework a little bit ago, so I'm not totally familiar with all the titles off the top of my mind, but that's our marketing, video production, all that kind of stuff.
All right. And it's pretty impressive that you keep up with all this stuff. There's a lot going on, and a lot of management to that. So like you said, there are managers for every specific department, essentially. And I can understand why you'd call them use teams and departments interchangeably, because you're literally wrangling, well, not you, but there are literally 150 plus people who are being organized across these 5 different departments to do these very visually demanding and very time consuming shows that are just really, really impressive to see. And it makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to being a part of this entire this really, really massive operation of people, can you tell us a little bit about the logistical side of having to manage all of these people? And I know you're predominantly focused on the observer side of things, but how is that kind of done and managed together? Is there? I'm assuming there's a hierarchy where there's meetings that are done. There's actually there's floor plans, there's like run of show, obviously there's something happening on every level, and I'm just kind of curious as to how like you keep up with all of it, if you even have to, and how that all comes together in like these really beautiful shows.
Yeah, I spreading out the work is how we keep a hold of it, honestly, and making sure everyone owns something. I think one of the big issues with project work is someone will pitch an idea and no one claims it, so it doesn't go anywhere. But our systems are designed so like if something goes down, like I'll point it out and be like, someone will have to be in charge of something, right? Lampted recently came up. I mean, he's been pitching an idea of like, I'll go ahead and talk about this on, I can tease this, a talent show night. And I don't know if this is going to be like, we're still really early in development on this. I don't know if this is going to be like a public thing or not, because we don't know where this is going to go. But he's been teasing it for a while. And then like earlier this month, I was just like, dude, just look into it. I'm giving you green light. Go research it. Like poll staff and see what people want. Right? If there's even interest in something like this. And he was able to find out there's interest, which is great. So a lot of it is self-management in that context, understanding who's in charge of what and managing different things, understanding who needs to talk to who and who stakeholders are. A lot of project management subconsciously goes into what we do. And knowing who to go talk to, which has its usual issues. If you're in a big company of 150 people and you don't necessarily know who to go to talk to for something, that's a real concern, right? Like that is a legitimate problem. So we try to put resources in the Discord server to help with that. Our main category has like an all staff resources section, which has tons of resources on like up to like I have made a guide for the Discord server, a video guide for the Discord server explaining what different channels do, what you need to actually focus on, all these kinds of things, because we recognize that there's just a lot in there. And then each team has its own category of stuff in there, and I don't know the structures for all of them because I don't have all the channels followed because I would go insane if I did. Yeah. But for the Observer side, we have an Observer announcements channel which just sends out we can media and operations have access to those channels as well, so they can see those pings as we send them out. So if we're booting up a practice, we send it through on the Observer side. We're booting up an Observer practice, we'll send it through Observer announcements and ping media and ops and the Observer team. We have an Observer scheduling channel which just lists major dates coming up, major events, roster nights, that kind of thing. We have an Observer resources, which has a tagging system. So if you're a luminary, you can go in there and just tag luminary and it'll show you everything relevant to you. Resources, world constraint, song lists if you want to go pull a song off our suggested song listings, that kind of stuff. Dress code, avatar restrictions, all that kind of stuff's in there. Same thing for comments. They've got the same kind of thing. There's onboarding channels. So what you were talking about like flow of show, expectations, general kind of nuanced policies we have for the team. For example, luminaries are not allowed to go hang out in the audience because it can lag the comments out, having an extra 10 people down there, right? And can distract from the comments doing their aspect of everything. This is something we review every once in a while, but we currently still have it on the books. But they are allowed to go down there for like a song after telling the stage manager, which is an operations member that's running the show for the night. So myself and the captains usually are not working the actual show nights. The system's designed that we don't have to do that. We can just watch and find things to improve on. Operations runs day of. And luckily we have a lot of trust with operations. They put in time and effort to build that trust with the team. So there's not really clashing personalities or issues or anything like that, which can be the case in a situation like that. And then we have our song submissions category, which is how we actually organize the music production itself, where we'll have our luminaries submit a song of their choice. They will tag it for the show that they want to perform in. They'll give instructions on it, like details on what it's supposed to be about, if it has a storyline or not, whether it's a stat check or a storyline performance. Stat check is just, I'm going to go do something cool, versus storyline is I'm going to tell a story. Right, breakdancing would be a good stat check idea of a performance. Storyline is, like my Banana Man performance is a great example of a stat check. We're just being silly, right? Versus, Ashton made a performance about her dog passing. That's a story performance, right? And then this ties back into the stage techs. The stage techs have access to that as well, and they on their end sort out all the submissions for that month or for that cycle of performances, and we'll go through and like, you're in charge of making the visual for this one, you're in charge of the visual for this one, you're in charge of the visual for this one, and then they'll spread out the work. So there is a lot of interlocking parts. There isn't really we don't have project managers internally. We just have a lot of project management skills that are being developed by a lot of people across the board to manage timelines, thinking about, okay, who all needs to know this decision? Who all needs to know this policy change? Who all needs to be involved in this process, right? And moving accordingly with that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a lot, but I know you say this all the time. You're very, very fortunate to have some really, very passionate people who are part of Luxe Nova, and they're very dead set on making something good, and they take responsibility for really adding something really significant and creating something really significant, within this group. It's super, super impressive to see. I am curious about some. I do want to know. Well, there's so much that you mentioned that kind of is just floating through my mind right now. So I'm trying to settle on one thing. So there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot there. So what I guess. How do you go about finding these people? You said there are many people in VRChat who are very, very talented and as dancers, but finding people who are not just talented in the performing arts, but also people who are very much talented in just taking responsibility, being managers, being captains, and just to actually be clear, are captains the same thing as managers, or are those two different things?
Yes.
Okay,
they're the same thing.
Same thing. Okay, gotcha. All right, so
yes, exactly.
Okay, so essentially, can you share some lessons that you've learned in these varying projects that have been done, with regards to having done this with everybody for a year, done Luxe Nova for a year? Can you tell us a little about those lessons that you've learned in leadership management, things that have kind of made you a better person or a better leader?
Yeah. I think I'll start with your talent acquisition question first, because that ties into it. I can tie that into it.
Right.
So it's very important when making a community that you have both a clear understanding of your goals and flexibility. You can't have one or the other. If you have pure flexibility and you're willing to adapt to everybody, you won't go anywhere because you don't have value. You're not standing for anything specifically. People don't want to be in an environment. This is why some people do like being in an environment that's very flexible, and it's just you kind of go and hang out, and that's okay if they want to do that, right? But you're not going to achieve anything without structure. And I think actually VRChat itself, the dev team, has given us a good example of this that I hearken to regularly when they came out with an article a year or two ago now, where they made an acknowledgement that they've been doing IC, right, independent creation work for the majority of the dev cycles, right? That's what they've been doing. And it wasn't working anymore because the game's too damn big. It just doesn't work anymore. And they did a huge restructuring, and they brought in, they promoted managers, and they built out management teams and all this kind of stuff. And they went less from the indie, independent creation, passionate vibes, similar kind of what we're at, right? Or similar to where we're at, into a much more structured organizational style with project managers and all this kind of stuff. And you can tell in the production of VRChat how much that changed. Because after that, that's when we started getting items. That's when we started getting the group system. That's when we started getting a lot more features like that. That's where all that stuff kind of came from, right? And I think similarly for us, having that culture, having the proper culture and goal setting while still being flexible is very important. And you can attract people by having the proper goals, and the people you want by having the proper goals, right? One of the biggest issues I've seen, I've given this advice to other folks too who try to start their venues, is if you don't have an actual vision, why would people follow you? There's nothing to follow, right? And there's a book that I mentioned on our previous chat during the Trevor Project stuff, which was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I highly recommend this book. Some of my captains have read it with me. It's a phenomenal piece of literature, and it goes into very concrete, actionable laws of leadership, and some of them are related to what I'm talking about, of if you want people to follow you. I'm not saying this in leaders are better than followers. I don't frame it that way mentally.
Yeah.
I frame it as they have two different jobs, right? Two different jobs they need to work through, right? A leader's job is to make decisions, even if that can be very uncomfortable and it can piss people off and not everyone will like it. That's part of the job. And if you don't like it, you got to get out of the job, right? It's hard to be a leader and a people pleaser. It's just the reality of it. And likewise, it's hard to be a follower and you have a lot of good ideas and people like look up to you because you have vision on what you're doing. It's hard to be a follower role with that, right? There's people, this is where you get the I could do it better argument from, right? And understanding where you fit in an environment is super, super important on that. I think that we've been able to attract a lot of good talent because of our pretty clear value add, I would say. I use a lot of corporal terms. Pretty clear value add of like, we care about what we do. Just do. We do cool stuff. Like, we just do, right? And we try and push boundaries as best we can in ways that we want to, right? We're not going to go out there and do something insane just because for the insanity of it, but we're also not just going to repeat the same old because it's safe. That's boring. No one wants to do that, right? We want to try new things. And doing that will attract people who you want on your team, right? And I think this goes into... I will never say that Luxe Nova, the team itself, is for everybody, because it's not. Because we have had people who've gotten onto the team and end up not fitting because they just don't match the culture properly. And we've had people who've wanted to get in for bad reasons, clout chasing, all this kind of stuff, especially in the Evergarden days when we were, from my understanding, pretty successful on TikTok, and we were kind of all over the place on that. I am not on TikTok. I have strong opinions on that, but that's a separate combo for a political point if we ever go down that route. Mm-hmm. But to my understanding, like that, we were pretty, up there, and we got people applying from seeing us on TikTok, which is great. But that did lead to some clout chasers coming towards us, and we were able to suss those people out because they're not there to produce good content. They're there because we're streamable or appealable or we're the big brand name right now or something like that. And that's not the right reasons to join the team. That's and not just like I don't want to work with that individual, which I don't, but it's just not going to be successful. You're not going to succeed on this team if your perspective is I am the shit and I'm coming in here knowing exactly what I'm going to do. Usually people that come into the team get knocked down if they have that kind of attitude, if they even get in. Mm-hmm. And it's really vital culturally. And it's very easy for me to just sit here and be like, oh yeah, just get great culture and great people. Duh, forehead. Fucking easy, right? Like, it's not that easy. It's way harder than I'm making it out to be. But it's so important to get the right culture and the right attitude. And those decisions you make early on as a leader can have huge ramifications down the line. Don't stress yourself out over them. Don't not fall asleep because of the stress involved with it and everything. But you making a decision now can impact things in 6 months or a year or 2 years out, right? Decisions that I made putting in things like radical candor for our feedback system back when Evergarden started is still what we use now. It's still relevant and it's like embedded in the culture now, which means we can have a practice session. And while it can be rough sometimes, people know and trust that they're trying to help each other the best they can and focus on things like actionable feedback and all this kind of stuff. It's so vital. It's so vital. I sound like an absolute corpo show right now, I'm sure, but I cannot stress how important it is. For any like military fans in the audience or whatever, this is the equivalent of like an army marches on their stomach. You got to get people right. Like they're your biggest resource. They're your biggest value add. They're why you got to do it. If you don't have a good vision for them to follow as a lead, and you are wishy-washy with your decision making, like you got to learn. Gotta stand by some decisions. Sometimes it's better to make a decision that's quick and go with it than it is to kind of spend too much time on wishy-washing on a decision, making sure it's right. Sometimes you just gotta make a call, I go into some psychology on that if we want to, but it's a separate thing. Yeah.
I do like psychology. I do enjoy that. But we can probably touch on that a little bit later, I would say. But I do like to, like, if you have any other layers of things like I'm always down to hear that, because I think everything, like you may be using a lot of corporal terminology. I think that's still very, very good, and still I think it's good to get that kind of perspective, because it shows that you are serious about what you do and that you take what you do very seriously, even if it is something that is completely volunteer based, something that's completely just something you're doing because you think it's really fun to do. So, but it's something that you genuinely care about, and I think giving that impression that like you're really approaching this from a very professional perspective, that, I mean, it speaks volumes of the kind of person that you are, the kind of character that you have, and the kind of kinds of people that will do well in Luxe Nova and that are already there. So I do want to ask, how did you all come up with the branding? Because I know you talked about that before, like how you had to come up with all that and figure that out and establish what you wanted the group to be, the organization to be. So how did I guess the team established Luxe Nova as the name, as using the crescent, and even the space theme of Luxe Nova. Like how did that all kind of come together?
So it was an iterative process over the month of last November. I remember right. I don't remember the specific flow because it was a month ago, and oh my god, I was burned the hell out by the time we got to that point, and then we had to do the transition. I remember setting up the votes, and like 2 weeks into November, I was just like, all right, guys, I'm done right now. Like, votes are going, feedback's going, we have our timeline, I'm going on a 2-week break. And they're all like, absolutely, please go do it. Please go do it. Please take care of your mental health. So our process was very feedback oriented. We love forums. We absolutely love forums. Forums are phenomenal. Use forums, guys. Use forums. They're great on Discord. Phenomenal shit. And we really use a lot of those. And each week we basically had different topics. So I think our first idea, things we were building on, was like put a little team together to come up with ideas for theming and colors. We also crowdsourced a ton of different color combinations from the team, and then we just voted on it. And then, from there, we had some lore written up and like a general idea, and we started integrating some lore ideas into the community. And we had the idea of like these sentient stars being produced and going down that magical route and all that kind of stuff. And, what kind of visual aesthetic we want to go with that. And we had votes on those, and those kind of went through. And then we ended up, choosing a name for that. I believe Luxe Nova means like new light or something like that, which was both symbolic of our time. Yeah, both symbolic at the time of kind of starting a new chapter for our group, while also directly tying into the lore, right? And you mentioned the crescent. That is actually also representative of our space station. So the logo itself, the crescent, is the space station, and the star itself is supposed to represent the star or stars powering said space station, which is Luxe Nova, right above the planet Nova. Sorry, above the planet Lux.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I mean, hey, there's a lot there. Like, no one's gonna, get you for like making a little terminology slip up. It's all right. But that's cool.
I'm not in character living on the space station right now, so we're all good.
That's fair.
I'm
fair.
VRChat Trudy, not observer management Trudy.
Absolutely. That's fair. So, can you kind of break down I know we talked about logistics of like the entire, like the departments that go into running Luxe Nova, but can you break down what is required to put together a performance? And I suppose you can talk from the observer side, because I think that'd be much more your speed since you're head of management. So can you tell us about like what are the steps needed to put together a full production in Observer?
So it varies on the show, of course. Voidfall was an absolute beast to handle. I think we did very good, all things considered. It was an absolute beast. And Lux and Lunacy was very similar, as these story-themed shows have a big lore element we need to follow in a storyline we need to really hammer home, right? Which, generally speaking, I think we actually failed on in Lux and Lunacy, and used those lessons in Voidfall, because during Lux and Lunacy, the main character was supposed to be Hugo Brisson, our first founder. If you look at the trailer for Lux and Lunacy, it's me talking to him, being like, do you need help? And he's like, no, everything will go according to plan. And I'm like, I fucking see you then, man. I'm going on vacation. A regular show, though, is a lot less on that aspect. There's still a lot of work that goes into it. A lot of it is diversified, so it doesn't feel like a ton, and we're pretty efficient at making them now. Team's gotten very efficient at it. So as stage techs make more visuals, they get better at it, of course. As performers make more performances, they're always trying to learn new stuff, so there's always going to be some drag on learning something new. But that goes in. Comets can reuse their avatars. Sometimes they'll make a new one, but for a regular show, they can reuse the same stuff. And they usually do. So the legwork on that is common bits. So I guess the best way to approach this would be what our cycles look like. So we have a 5-week cycle for our scheduling, and shout out to Radiance for willing to work with us since we're the problem child that need more logistics and support on the Observa side of things. Radiance is a lot easier to kind of set up. They have their practices, but it's a pretty straightforward go slash floor hosting event. You build your roster on like Wednesday or whatever. You do your event on Saturday. I'm not trying to undersell it, but it's logistically more approachable.
Right.
For us, we have our week 1 of a cycle is usually workshop oriented. So we'll kind of pull the team and see what workshops people want to do. This can vary for luminaries. This has been like, I'll host a music theory lesson. Some of our cabinets have hosted like building and performance lessons, which I found very beneficial, personally speaking. My Banana Man performance would not be nearly as good without attending that lesson. We've done like burlesque lessons, fan lessons, prop usage lessons, floor work lessons, like, getting up and off the ground lessons. Like there's a variety of that on the dancer side. And on the actor side, things like we'll do character building workshops, improv workshops, more class oriented stuff as opposed to just going to audience anarchy and just practicing. These kinds of things. That'll be the first week, and then the second week is we do practices Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. EST. And then that's open to most of the team that needs to be there. So Radiance, if you're just on Radiance, you don't get to attend the practices, unfortunately, because we have so many people that go to them with ops and media and creative and performers, of course. And then Tuesday and Thursday, week 2 is pretty light on attendance. Sometimes there might be a dancer or two that's there because most people are working Unity work. Comets will show up a little bit more. They'll go do some audience anarchy or something like that, usually some kind of practice like that, or ask the team what they want to work on, or develop or have a chat about bits for that cycle. What kind of bits do they want to do for the stage performances? Week 3 and week 4 is more intense in the practices. We tend to have more people showing up to those practices, and the feedback system that we have is for luminaries and comets is a little bit different. Luminaries is we'll have someone run their performance, and then we'll ask if they want feedback. If they say no, cool. If they say yes, we'll usually be like, hey, what do you want feedback on specifically? Like, is there anything you don't want feedback on? Sometimes we'll be like, I know my Unity work's fucked right now. Don't comment on it. I don't want it. Give me choreo feedback. Cool. We'll focus on choreo. Right? And then performers and guests or anyone in the room can go up there and give feedback on things. Feedback is not required to be used, but it is good guidance to get ideas. Every bit of feedback's a gift, as we like to say. Comets work a similar kind of thing. They'll do like, whose line is it anyway, or something like that. And then they'll have a breakdown after it, talking about the scene they did, the rule sets, how they think they did, feedback from the group, so on and so forth. Week 4 is Comet Integration Week. And this is where we start bringing things together. At this point, submissions for luminaries are locked. No one can submit any more performances ideas for that cycle. And what you've got locked in. If you drop, that's totally fine. But you can't change your song at that point. And that's where stage techs, usually by this point, have a recording of the rough performance that the luminary is doing. Again, luminaries are stage performers, and they can start building a visual to match the aesthetic of it. And if they're adding DMX to it, they can start programming the lights. That's rare now because DMX is so much work.
Can you explain what DMX is real quick? Can you explain what DMX is?
Yes,
for those who don't know?
Yeah, I'm the perfect person to explain it because I also don't know that much about DMX, so I'm also out of the loop on this.
Okay.
DMX is basically light coding that you put on a video that a system will read, and then it controls lights with it. I don't have a better way. It's like it literally looks to me like the way I describe it is like a goddamn checkerboard. It's like a little checkerboard that's got different whites and blacks on it, and it's kind of moving and scrolling in the video or whatever, and then there's a part of the screen that reads that, and it tells the lighting rig what to do. A lot of rave venues will do stuff like this. A lot of pre-recorded sets will do stuff like this. We have it as a feature, but we don't usually use it because it's so time intensive. It doubles the workload for a stage tech, and if we've got 3 stage techs making 12 videos, like those each take several hours of time, and if it takes 3 hours to make a visual, doubling it to 6 is a lot of time to eat up, right? So a lot of times what we'll do is live jockeying instead, where we'll have someone in the booth in the back of the observer theater. You can see them working, and they have a keyboard that you won't be able to see that they will be hitting, and that controls different light sets, positions on where they move, the strength of the lighting, the coloring of the lighting, these kinds of aspects. So by week 4, we're in common integrations. Things are locked down, and common integrations are when we mix the two teams to work on performances that use a common integration, which is when a luminary wants the comets to help with something. A good example of this would be for Lux and Lunacy, Cryo had a salsa performance from a song from, I think it's called Rio, from some bird movie or whatever the hell, or maybe the movie's called Rio, something like that. And I'm sure the team's flaming me, those that are listening right now, for not remembering this shit. And they just had comets as funny birds like fall down from the audience and kind of sillily dance in front of the audience, right? So if you ever see comets working the audience at the same time of a performance, not just like sitting there and shooting the shit, but actually seeming like they're part of the performance, that's a common integration. We practice those on week 4 of that weekend, or of the cycle. And then in week 5, we've got roster, dress, and then our event time. So roster night is the Tuesday of event week. This might change depending on how our survey results go, because we bumped it up 4 days for Voidfall, and people seem to like it, but we'll see what the survey finally says. Again, we're always reviewing our systems and trying to find optimal things, optimal ways forward. Roster night is basically come in. For luminaries, it's check your performance, make sure it's good enough to roster. Nothing gets on stage without our approval as management. And for comets, that's also kind of the, did you attend a practice this cycle? Do you have an avatar that's like in restrictions and ready to go? Do we feel confident in your ability to work the floor and perform? And do we feel comfortable with you being in these comet bits? And then Thursday night is dress rehearsal, which I believe you attended for our grand opening.
Yes.
Which was the closed practice where we invite VIPs if we want to. Usually we don't. It depends on the event. And then our plus ones, which is where our staff members get to invite, if they are working that event or heavily contributed that event, aka stage techs, they get to invite a +1, which is our way of basically acknowledging that it's really fucking hard to get into our shows, and we want our team to still have friends that can come see and support. And we allow them to come in. And then Friday and Saturday is, according. We actually have a rule on the Observer side that we don't allow non-working staff to attend our Observer shows. We encourage them to go to the dress rehearsal instead, because we want to give as many spots as possible to guests. So when you see that like 40-person queue in full instance, none of our staff are actually in that queue. None of our staff are contributing to that. It is purely guest interest, which I find so heartening. And just so appreciative that we have so much support on that kind of things. How's that for the workload going into it?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. That was a really great breakdown. Thank you very much. So how do you, like, with so many people wanting to go to these shows, has there been any conversations about how to approach the idea of opening up to more people, to instances, such as that,
Yes. Oh my God, yes. So there are 2 conversations we have every 2 or 3 months, which is multi-instance and European time zones. It happens all the time. Like, we've been having it since we basically started the venue. In fact, probably 2 months into Evergarden, and this was, speaking of learning, this is a great learning experience for me. We made the decision as leadership to move the time of the event and split it. So instead of an 8 p.m. EST time slot, we were going to do a 6 p.m. show and a 10 p.m. show. And the logic here was this would be more approachable to Europeans and more approachable to Americans that get on later in the night, where a lot of good talent is performing. And it would give us, obviously, 2 shows in a day. We can run similar performances if we want to, or, adjust accordingly. And it'd be doable. The issue was we did not pull staff on this at all. We just made the decision. And that was completely the wrong approach. And the staff correctly pushed back on us and said, we don't fucking want this. This is not what we agreed to. Let's have a conversation about this, please, before making a decision like that. And we were like, yep, cool, sounds good. We had a convo, we did a vote. No one wanted it. And I was like, fire. Cool, understood. Got it. right? Maybe now we could have a conversation about it. Maybe staff would be interested in splitting it up and having 2 shows on a day. It's a combo to have, especially with how stacked the Comet team is right now, because that's my main concern is the Comet side of things, making sure, because they got to socialize for like 2 hours. That's a lot of talking, man.
Yeah.
As you get burned out, right? Like people are tired by the end of a show. Luminaries I'm worried less about, because while they do put their heart and soul in one performance, it is one performance for the night, which is manageable, right? I say that as a luminary. Doing a 6 and a 10 would not be too challenging for me. So that's always, EU's always been a conversation, never really panned out. It's a catch-22 on, well, we need EU talent to make that happen, but it's hard to get EU talent unless we're doing an EU time. And it hasn't been a priority to actually sit down and solve that or do a big recruitment drive to get that interest and get things rolling. As for multi-instance support, it's very hard on our end to do that. It would be easier for Radiance, just because of the nature of the venue. So usually in our conversations, that's kind of the one that gets brought up. But there's also the question of like queues and all that kind of stuff, right? Like Observa has more general interest in it than Radiance does. So we could probably fill a second instance if we have the staff for it. But then there's questions of like, well, what if we're using, if it's a character show, how the fuck do we run the same thing at the same time? Right. Obviously, we could run a second show later in the day. That requires a lot of logistical changes, pulling the team, making sure we staffed up for it, all that kind of stuff. We've thought about staggering our instances, which is probably the best actual double instance option, where we'd start a show a half hour after the other show. We wouldn't bill it as a second instance. It'd be the same effective show, where the comms would probably run the same bits. Because we usually throw all of our props on avatars, so we can just share that avatar with another staff member, and they can kind of do their thing, right? We did this during, I think 3 different people were using the prop avatars during Voidfall. So this is why it's very important when we say show avatars, guys. We see these 3 really up at the front. They're very important. That's what we mean. It means we have a lot of props on those avatars that you need to see, or it's going to look really silly up there. Right. In Voidfall, we had the big stage monster that came out. That was all an avatar. If you didn't have that avatar shown, you missed the entirety of the bit. You missed the whole thing, which sucks. So staggering it, you'd have to have basically 2 combat teams, probably put different characters on like a regular show in there, because we're going to put the characters in there. Heal will show up here and there, chartreuse, so on and so forth. And then probably bump luminaries between them. So they'd perform in one and a half hour, perform in the other one. Logistically doable? Sure. Logistically a nightmare? Yes. Something we're going to definitely deep dive into, because we never written out to its full extreme to really give it the shake. But that is a plan. However, we do have a plan to help people in the queue. This is greenlit. It's going to happen. I'm not going to announce specifically what that is yet. But what I will say is, now that we have a very functional world team, it opens up a lot of opportunities for us. So Observa and Radiance will not, long term, will not be the only worlds that people will be visiting to experience at least parts of what we're putting out. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for this project. It'll be good.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. Like having a multi-instance doesn't mean that you'll have people in the other instance too. But at least you have Ender, who is I would say she's the manager of the media ops team, right?
Yes, she is. Yeah. She's the head of live production currently. Yes, okay. I believe that's her official title.
Okay.
And we have media's been doing a rebuild for the last few months, and they're continuing to build themselves up, which has been great to see. And they've been putting in a lot of work, and they're specifically putting a lot of work. And some of the management members have been really stepping up, which I really appreciate to see. And the stream will become a much more important idea, as a much more important part of the show as time progresses. We know that right now it's just watching a stream of it. That's not up to our standards. So we're going to put time and effort into that. It's on media team's goals to integrate with that. And, maybe some things here and there of maybe interacting with chat a little bit more and tying things in, and, some interactions here and there. We've got ideas. I don't want to go into any specifics, but we have ideas we're discussing. So
Okay, great. I'm sure many people, including myself, who'd like to come to these shows again, will be very, very happy to hear about what you guys come up with, whenever that is. All right, great. So, with regards to just, I would say, applying to be a part of Luxe Nova, and I would imagine a vetting process that goes into that. Can you break that down? And I know it's different for all teams. I know there's different timelines for different teams. I did read. Yeah. So can you kind of break that down? I guess in a more general sense of like how that happens, how you guys go about doing that.
Yeah, I think for pretty much every team, it's a bit of a rolling application process. We're always at least looking at it. Right. It's one of those things where it's like, I post the thread. So if someone posts in there, I see it. Right. And I notice it because I check the public server, and all management does usually. And we'll notice these kinds of things. And if someone really sticks out, at least speaking for Observer side specifically, if someone really sticks out, we might fast track them. Or if they're a former team member that have applied, sometimes we'll fast track them as well. Or they've just been really engaged and really showing that they really want to get on the team, and there's not like red flags about that behavior or anything like that, because there's certainly folks who are like, I really want to get on the team, but you can kind of tell that like there's something funky going on there, like maybe it's not for the right reasons, or they're just too interested to the point where it feels like bringing them on culturally would be a problem. Right, or there could be concerns with that, how they interact with the rest of the team. For Observer side, we actually for most of the groups, I would say probably all the groups, there isn't a group that's just like rolling, because we don't have much turnover, which is I'm very thankful for. We still of course have turnover, but a lot of our stuff is like, ex team member is on one team, and they want to drop from that team because they want to focus on another team. I just had a conversation with someone last night about this exact kind of thing, where they were like, hey, I am thinking about doing this transition and leaving this team because I want to work on this team more, because this seems more beneficial to me right now with my skill sets and what I want to learn. I'm like, Godspeed, Godspeed. I do it, right? We don't often have people that are just like, I'm kind of disengaging. That doesn't happen too much. It does happen, but not that often. For the Luminary and Comets, the application processes are pretty similar. We've kept them pretty similar for a long time. There's been some iterations. The current version for Luminaries is, and we just started this, so if you guys are interested in applying, please go apply on Luminary side now. Not at this moment, but soon, because we're going to be looking at applications in like a week or two, like processing apps in like a week or two. So Luminary side, we reach out a few weeks ahead of time when we want to do interviews and say, hey, we'd like to give you an opportunity. We want to bring you in for an audition and an interview. Build a performance. This is obviously after they apply and we see what we like enough out of their application. Build a performance, right? Doesn't need to be Observer standard, as we call it. Doesn't need to be our level. We just want to see, are you a self-starter? Are you, generally competent in your choreo and performing, right? Do you have two left feet? Are you just tripping over yourself all the time? Are you too reliant on effects and these kinds of stuff? Because there's probably a perception out there that like you have to use effects on the team. You don't. You absolutely do not. It is not at all a requirement. What is required is making good performances. If that requires very minimal effects, fire. Like, that's great. And I have a great story to highlight that if we want to go into that.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
And then we'll bring them, one second. And we'll bring in the person for an audition, and then we'll have an interview, discuss scheduling, expectations on the team, logistics, kind of how the flow goes. Because we know we're a lot. I don't have a better way to phrase that. We know we're a lot. And there's a lot of expectations when you join the team. It's not an easy place to just like, you have to have passion and drive to succeed, and we don't want to bring in people who are going to fail. It's not worth our time. It's not worth their time, right? And we don't want people who are going to show up for a month and then dip. It's not what we're going for. We want people who are genuine about growth and improvement and long haul. And Comets are the same way. For the Comet side, because they have more group-oriented stuff, they're improv-based a lot of the time. They will have usually a Comet or two come and help out for some improv bits, and kind of see how people succeed in these improv environments, right? And some people, improv's hard. It's a very hard skill.
Oh, yeah.
Some people just kind of cluster up. Some people will feel like, or some people will come off as like, it's just them acting a way as opposed to a different character, which is a delineation we want to make, right? Because we have high expectations. I think our last group of comets, less than half the people we interviewed actually got onto the team. And we're not interviewing any comets for this next cycle. The comet team is like, we are full of people. We can only roster 6 in a night, 8 if we're really pushing it, right? And we want to make sure we still have people, like opportunities for people, right? Limited is in the hand where you always looking for new folks because we can fit more people in a show. So it helps out. And a lot of our folks, like, you know, B was a very common performer for a while. She's doing a lot of creative stuff. She doesn't have time, and with job and living with her boyfriend now, shout out to Dax, my boy, you know, all that kind of stuff. She doesn't have the time to perform as much, right? Which is understandable, but it's part of the shtick. Good example on the usage and assets. One of the things that we really try and push is assets are not a required thing. Assets are a tool to use for your performance. And I think this goes back to what we were talking about way earlier on some of the secret sauce and kind of what makes us special. Because I think a lot of people in the game are like, if I throw props on it, it looks cool. Yeah, it does. So I'm not saying it doesn't, for sure, right? But does that make it impactful? That's a different conversation, right? I could make the loudest fucking song on the planet, but if it isn't actually structured like music, no one's going to get anything from it, right? Purpose and why is so important, and it's something we really try to push at practices and in our feedback to each other. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? What's your goal with this? What's your intention with this? What emotion do you want the audience to feel? I had a conversation with one of our team members earlier today who was doing something very sensitive to them. And they were like writing out a script and they were like, this sounds like a divorce. This isn't what I want. And I was like, well, what do you want the audience to feel? They didn't really have an answer for that. They were like, some general emotions. I'm like, hey, what do you feel when you think about this? What do you feel about this? And I was like, that's the feelings that you want to push, right? That's what you probably want your audience to feel too. You want them to feel anger. You want them to feel being upset. You want them to feel being used for this specific performance, and pushing those ideas across. And then we worked on some asset work to help get to that goal, right? Which includes like adding signs, and you'll see it in February. It's going to be great. The story. So Sky Sage. Great performer. Love this woman. When she joined the team, you've probably seen her work.
I have.
She does phenomenal shader work, phenomenal performance, all this kind of stuff. She came to us from Terminus. I recommend everyone go check Terminus out as well. They do a lot of stage performances as well, much more particle heavy than us. Very impressive stuff. We have restrictions on what you can do with ours because we want the world to be immersive and we want the comets to be there as well and be part of the experience. So we have restrictions on over renders and all these kinds of things. They can just full steam with full creativity, and it's super cool to see. When Sky joined our team, I proposed to her a challenge, which is use 0 effects. Can you do a performance with no effects? And she, to her credit, was weirded out by it, but she took it. She was like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to trust this. I'm going to give this a shake. I'm going to give this a ride. We're going to try it. And she made a very good, she used clones, which is totally fine in that context, right? A very good, I forget the song, but it was kind of like, if I remember right, it was kind of classical in that space. Sky, if you're watching, so you can skin me later if I'm fucking this up, it's fine. In that kind of very emotional, choreo-based movement. It was very slow and methodical. Had some like ballet vibes to it. And she used no effects. And she absolutely nailed the choreo and the emotion, what she was going for with it. And I was like, good. So you've proven that you can do it this way. Right? You don't need fancy effects. And this goes for all of our performers. Performers often go into Unity work and asset work because it's better ways to tell their story or have impact. Screen shading and lighting is super valuable, right? Setting tones. My performance for VRChat on Saturday, the only effects I've got in there is clones, a material swap, and screen shaders. Because that's all I need to tell the story I'm trying to tell, right? And it's in the VRChat world, so we want to be as light and as optimized as possible, right? It's a tool to be used. It's not something to be relied on, right? And we've had performers who do join the team somewhat reliant on assets, and some of our goals for them is pointing it out and being like, hey, like, work on your choreo, because that is your actual growth point. Where most staff are like, hey, your choreo is pretty solid, your Unity work could use work, maybe push on that more too, right? They're all skill sets to use in the goal of making a damn good performance that hits the goals for the performer, right? And we really try and push that. We don't always succeed in pushing that. Some people still feel like that is the way it is. I'm sure plenty of people outside the group feel that way, but internally we really try and be like, it is tools to use. You use the tools as much or as little as you want, you know?
So what would you say is the necessity of having a Blender and or Unity background when it comes to being a part of the Luxe Nova team or any Luxe Nova team?
It varies tremendously on which team you're on.
Oh, well, yeah.
If you're
okay,
dev,
yeah.
like if you're dev or whatever the hell, like it doesn't really matter.
Of course.
Like, you know, in that context, it matters if you're coming to the event because we want you in proper garb, right? Like we want you dressed up the part or whatever, right? Like event ops, like if you're coming as an operations manager in event ops, like you have to look like you belong in Observa. Like that's an expectation we put forward. For like it's mixed. You don't need a lot of it getting onto the team. Like honestly, just if you want to just go upload an Avi and learn some basic optimization, like know how to upload Avis and basic optimization, that's totally appropriate. That's fine. You know something, right? Ideally, actually we have team members that don't really know anything and they make it work because they have friends that'll do it for them, which is also fine. At the end of the day, we care about people getting to the goal. While obviously still being supportive of growth and improvement, but getting to the goal is what ultimately matters. But there's been so many people who have joined the team who just know fuck all, and they just absorb like a sponge, fam. Like they just eat it up. They're getting resources. They're sitting there with calls with people. Sophie, I'll shout out to Sophie on this specifically. That woman was a sponge when she joined the team. She was immediately like, we were like, yeah, if you need anything, let us know. Oh, she let us know. We were in calls with her all the time, helping her build stuff. She was asking other members of the team how to do XYZ, whatever the hell. And the difference between her first performance, which was just a clone performance, to her second performance, which used like storm clouds and like was throwing rocks around and like all this stuff, like the difference was astronomical because she put in that time in that like month or two to really dig into this stuff and learn it and really push on those ideas. Again, not the expectation to go down that route or go that insane. I highlight her because she's one of the best examples I can think of that attitude to grow and improve. Like on Unity stuff specifically, just diving into it and absorbing info like a sponge, just constantly in office hours, constantly poking people for help and really using people as resources like we want to be for each other. And then making really cool art out of it that she has continued to refine over time. Her void file performance with Hazelnut was phenomenal. And, you know, she did, if I remember right, she did most of the work on that, the mocapping and the effects and the combat. That was like, I believe, like most of her brainchild, which was really cool to see, going from, you know, general clone dance, like some kind of clone dance she was working on for 6 months or whatever, to that monstrosity of a performance. It was super, super cool.
All right, nice. I mean, that is really good to hear, because I do think that a lot of people may, like, they see a Luxe Nova performance and like, holy shit, there's so much going on here. Like there's so much, like, there's like world things going on here. There's avatar things going on here. There's so many assets being used. I think a lot of people may have the impression that you have to be like really, really good at Unity and or Blender to really join the team. And you know, I think that's really insightful for people who are genuinely interested in creating a heartfelt performance, you know, something that actually, like, you know, means something that really reaches people in that way, that's largely the goal. You know, you want to create something that's not only cool but also, you know, impactful in that way. All right.
One of our current applicants asked this exact question recently, like, do I need to know asset work? And I was like, no, like you're you know, I care about what you produce, not how you produce it or what necessarily what it looks like. I care about it being good. And that's obviously a subjective framework, but I think we all have a general idea of what good looks like, right? And, you know, I was very clear with him, like, if you want to learn stuff, there are plenty of resources, plenty of people that are willing to help you learn in very effective ways. But if you don't want to, I'm not going to make you. That's not the expectation here, right? You make performances that work for you. If you can carry a story or whatever through just your core and that's what you want to do, send it. I think he will feel pressure to do it eventually because imposter syndrome is a hell of a beast on our team. It used to be way worse. But, there are a lot of times we'll have team members who are like, I want to do justice by my other performers, and they're making such cool performances. It makes me want to learn that way too. And, different ways of going about that thought process. But a lot of people do end up, even some who are like, I don't want to learn it. They get on the team and they're like, actually, there's some pretty cool shit going on here, and I kind of want to know how to do this,
Right.
They change their tune a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't blame them. Like the passion and like the group dynamic is it's definitely going to encourage people to want to be better. You want to be better because you're around people who are generally had that motivation to be better. Makes sense. Yeah. All right. So, can you talk to me a little bit about how Luxe Nova approaches the idea of marketing and advertising? Because obviously this is a VRChat centric endeavor, and there are a number of ways to advertise and let people know about these performances. But I'm curious to know like your thoughts on like what have you found to be effective, what have you found to be ineffective, what ways that perhaps that can be better, if that's anything that you can really speak on, since I know you're not really like the media team, but I'm sure it's something that you've thought about.
Yeah, I think our best marketing has been word of mouth. I'm not gonna lie. And just collaborations, right? And, having people that like what we do and support us and talk about us. Great example that I can vaguely mention. We had one of our head managers had a conversation with some folks yesterday. I'm not going to go into specifics more than that, outside of the fact that like they had heard our name everywhere. They hadn't seen our stuff, but they had heard about us everywhere, which just is like a word of mouth thing, right? Specifically from folks in the rain dance space, which is I saw that and I heard that and I was like, yes, that's like another value add on like going down that rain dance route, all that stress, like it pays off because people there talk about us, right? Mm-hmm. On the media side of things, like I have my own opinions on like what I think is effective. I'm not an expert at marketing. I don't pretend to be. I leave that up to the media team to kind of sort out. There are things I'll poke them on of like, I need this image because I'm going to send out a ping on Monday about XYZ. I need an image for that and that kind of thing. We have some general ideas and cadences on when we want to be sending out pings, like ideally announcement pings are on Mondays. Announcing an event that's coming up is on Mondays, usually, and then one on the day of. We tend to slack here and there on that kind of thing. It kind of, it's one of those, we're not perfect and we have things to keep improving on. And I think on the marketing and branding side, that is something we can continue to improve on pretty well. And there's a lot of growth opportunity in that space. Because, obviously the end goal is like we're getting 10K views a pop on TikTok or whatever the fuck. And we're just like all over the place, right? And I think that's achievable with the content like we have. Like what the team builds is really impressive, and I do think we can make it there. It's just a matter of actually getting to that point, right? And the ultimate question, is it worth it? Right? Conversion. What does conversion look like in a media aspect? We have the same conversation at Observa. What does getting more people to see us actually do? Right? What's the value add in that kind of thing? What's our goal with that? Is it an extra 50 people in queue? Is that a goal we want to go for? You know what I mean? There's like a real tangible aspect of like, if they can't even get into the goddamn show, like what's the value add? How much value are we actually producing for them? Right? Doesn't mean we shouldn't go for it or anything like that, right? But there's these conversations to have of like, what does this actually get us? What is the actual value add benefits, all this kind of stuff, which is why I harped on earlier collabs and that kind of stuff, because that is at least something we can control a little bit more and be a little bit more on the side of like, this benefits the team because it's a unique experience our team members get to go through, right? Trevor Project's a good example of that. Rain dance. Everyone that participated in rain dance can put performed in rain dance on their resume. I got it twice now. Several of our team members have it twice now, which is great. Because we did the 2023 one as Evergarden, right? And I use that to justify my shit at work. I remember in 2023, we have a thing called the Space Goat, which is just a newsletter internally at my organization. And I put it in there and I had one of the C-suite members be like, so what is this rain dance thing? What is this award thing y'all are doing? which was a very good opener to discuss this fun, awesome passion project I do, and dodge the not stuff that is the stuff that it would not be good to bring up at work, right? On the VRChat side of things,
of course.
But in a very respectful way of like, yeah, this is from this, Rain Dance Film Festival in the UK. It's the biggest independent film festival in the UK. It's the equivalent of our Sundance. Like, playing up those authoritative statements on that to kind of push these ideas forward. And getting those kinds of opportunities is like a good way to transition stuff like that. Word of mouth has been our best. Shout out like people like Scoot over at Ministry. He's been phenomenal. He just pitched us on something like the other day, which I can't talk about because we haven't locked in or anything like that. But that stuff like that. Madam Kana is someone I'll also shout out. We were able to help out with the VR charity event because she brought us up to the organizers of it because she was on that team. And shout out to Cuss who ran that. Best pitch I've ever gotten in VRChat. Incredibly professional guy. Knew exactly what he was saying with his presentation. Pitched on he had full timeline written out of everything, as much as you can early on in the site. It was like, this is like a January or whatever the hell for a November show. But knew exactly what he wanted out of us, and was very clear with that, which usually is the kind of pain point, which I praise you on as well, setting this up of like, I knew very well what we were going to be doing here, which I appreciate a lot of. I find a lot of folks are kind of like, let's do something together, but they don't have an idea of what that is. And that is very not ideal for how we run things. Because like, yeah, I can sit there for 2 hours trying to brainstorm with you, but I'd rather you just pitch something and show you to put some thought into it. Right? Like what that looks like. These are folks that do that kind of thing, which I very much appreciate and respect a lot of. It shows what you were highlighting earlier, like the care, putting that thought in really matters and saves time on everything. And gives us a better understanding of each other, which then means going back to the actual question of like media and branding, like helping that word of mouth go. Scoot knows now what we do, has a good understanding of it, which means he can kick opportunities our way, right? Madam Khan's been a fan of us forever and a huge supporter forever. She made a Rain Dance award-winning like documentary on Evergarden back in the day. She knows what we're capable of and can kick opportunities our way, right? And just gains that benefit that way.
All right, hell yeah. So, what makes a Luxe Nova member?
What a question. So many silly things I can say, I'm not going to. Passion, I really think is a lot of it. People on our team are very passionate and they want to build cool things and try new stuff. There are people engage in it in different ways and different styles. Some people are wallflowers, some people are social animals. It varies. But we try to be a place that caters to a couple different groups of folks. Ideally, our people are really engaged individuals who are really sold on what we're doing and really kind of pushing. But we also do want to cater to people who are just like, I want to show up every 2 or 3 months and engage that way and do that, which is fine. Like if they want to do that, it's totally appropriate, right? As long as we're helping facilitate fulfill their needs as a performer, I'm happy, right? And my captains are happy, and the rest of us are happy too. Now, obviously, that varies depending on team. It's very easy for me on my end and for Observa to be like, yeah, man, you want to come perform every 3 months? That's fine. That's within our attendance expectations. That's whatever, because we do a show like every month, right? Like it's 3 shows. It's fine, right? That's totally appropriate, right? Show up, knock some socks off, call it a day. You're good. No qualms, no issues, right? For other teams, 3 months is like you're just not doing anything. So it varies on that context. Being open to feedback is important. Being open to giving feedback is important, I would say. Feedback is such a sensitive topic, and I use feedback instead of criticism intentionally because it is important to give just as much, if not more, positive feedback than negative feedback. This is a trap that everyone, even ourselves, fall into a good amount. Mm-hmm. And it's important to recognize that you can build someone up by supporting those positives, and sometimes it's more efficient to just build someone up than it is to try and fix an issue, right? If you're 3 days out from a show they're not going to fix that issue in time. There's a good chance they won't get it, right? Depending on what the issue is. But if you can say, hey, your choreo emotionally is really good, do more of it, that's something they can build on, right? And further and improve. And I think that goes for all of our teams and all of our members, trying to find ways to give feedback and help and process feedback effectively. People take it differently. Some people need more support than others. That's totally natural, totally normal. Some people take certain bits of feedback better than others. But understanding that is the culture. That's what we do. Like, that is why we are successful, is because we can sit there and give each other feedback and trust that we are trying to do what's best for the other person for the benefit of the group and benefit of each other's growth and making the best stuff. Because no one wants to go up there with a pile of shit. Like, I've greenlit performances that, like, the performer themselves were like, I don't feel good about that, which means I failed by greenlighting it because I had hesitations on it. I was like, I'm going to trust them. And even at the end, it was like the wrong decision to do, right? That's happened, right? And, like, you know, part of this setting expectations, being able to tell people no, there's a lot of things that kick into that. And I would say would there be, you know, so feedback aspects, passion, I would say work ethic is the last thing I'll mention. Work ethic is super important, and work ethic varies from person to person what that looks like. For some people, work ethic is a very natural thing. They're just a grinder. For some people, it's not something they focus on a lot, and they just show up on the day and they do well, and that works, right? Work ethic is about balance. It's about understanding boundaries. It's about understanding expectations. It's about understanding what your team needs and what you need. It's about understanding how you want to grow or not grow and where you're prioritizing those aspects of things, right? I'm big on, you know, you should always be growing, but I'm not going to tell you where to be growing, right? Like, there are times like my performances, I don't feel my next performance, I don't feel like it's a big growth performance for me. It's not. There's not much anything I'm learning new on it. It's just kind of a performance for the VCAT one, which I will tune up for February. But on other things in my life right now, like diet, like I'm making growth on. I'm trying to eat better and that kind of stuff, right? So having a growth mentality in general to push things forward, I think, is important. And I think that does directly tie into the work ethic of our staff members, and kind of how things shake out, the boundaries they set up, the amount of grinding a lot of people on the team do, to the point of burnout for some people, and how things shake out that way.
All right. How does Luxe Nova handle distracting or disrespectful patrons?
So this is, I have a funny story on this. During one of our Voidfall sets, we actually, us being for Observer, it almost never happens. It just doesn't. Like, for a regular show, it just doesn't happen. Like, I've had one issue that I can think of that, especially since the split, that I've had to be called in on or like been notified of that there was something going on, which meant that the captains felt like I needed to possibly step in the situation. And it was someone who was so interested in the show, they were telling other staff or other guests to shut up. And I was like, cool. I went out there and checked. One of our management members was just kind of sitting there and watching to see how things were going, make sure they didn't do it again after being warned. And they didn't do it again, which was great. And then they actually praised us in general chat a ton and then donated $30 to our coffee, saying this was like the greatest thing they've ever seen. Which I love super passionate. I was like, damn, like that's maybe a little too much, but you know, we're pretty strict on things, I would say, intentionally so. We want to have a good, safe environment, and we want, especially on the Observer side, when we're doing a theater performance, like we need people to be respectful and in their seats and everything. So there's that aspect to it. That's obviously it's still relevant at Radiance. Radiance can be a little bit more loosey goosey, I feel, with things. Even though I think they've had more patrons that are not following the rules as much or being a little bit too XYZ, whatever, especially, Radiance being a party venue, there's going to be alcohol involved a lot more than what the theater does. And that can definitely cause issues. We all know what alcohol can do to somebody, right? And poor decision making and, that kind of thing. I've heard of Radiance and ops people, because ops usually moderates the instances, handling situations. I haven't seen it myself at Radiance when I've been there, and I'm there a lot. And like I said, there's like that one story on the Observer side. It's a rare thing. There's a lot of self-selection, I think, in what we do. We're not not a public black cat where someone's gonna be walking around and playing loud music and yelling out slurs or something like that. Like, we're just not that environment. We don't attract those kinds of people. It's very self-selecting, and like the person who goes to a Observa show is not the individual that goes around, trolling a lobby, I'd say, as I'm running it. But like, it's just not what you're going there to do, right? Like, it's just not the vibe. And like, especially with the queue and everything, how quick our instances fill up, no one's going to be trying to rush in there to be disruptive. Radiance, again, is a different story because the queue moves pretty quickly at Radiance, right? There's a lot of people in and out. It's a party. We're going to go there and then bounce to other parties and all that kind of stuff. We have a lot of people stay, which is really cool to see. Mm-hmm. This is really cool to see. But it's not really that much of a concern, and the team usually handles it pretty well.
All right. So like it, well, for those who don't know, Luxe Nova is celebrating their 1-year anniversary relatively recently, and given the fact that it's been 1 year as Luxe Nova, and there was also the time previously as doing Evergarden and was it Duskfall?
Voidfall?
No,
talking about the Halloween event.
No, not Voidfall. The other performance that you did in Evergarden, well, as Evergarden, the Darkwood. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So what are the foundations that you all are following to continue to grow and maintain the kind of presence that you all have established as an organization? And again, there's like 150 plus people that are part of this really, really fantastic organization of people. So what are the plans to essentially kind of keep the ball rolling and continue to maintain that momentum that you all have built up over this last year or so? What are the plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the team has a lot of plans. Just going through some of the big rocks that I'm aware of, because again, like, I don't know everything that goes on. There are plenty of conversations and chats that I am just not tuned into unless I get pinged on them, and then I need to know about them. And that is a regular, actually I don't get pinged that often, thank the Lord, on that kind of stuff. But I tend to keep my spacing on that and let people do their jobs, because that's part of the job, right? It's like, they're there for a reason. We want to give them that space. So I can't speak to everything going on across the org. I can speak to specific things that each team's doing that I'm aware of. Media is really tuning up. They've had a couple management shakeups lately, which has been cool to see, like some new folks stepping into roles to really push things forward. And they've been doing great with that. Ender specifically, I want to shout out, has been doing really good at pushing things forward and giving some, they're going through a lot of learning experiences right now, which is great, figuring things out. Just the other day, I stole some shit from work, like our creative brief, and gave it to them, because it was like, this is like a new process we have of teams asking them for resources and things. Having an actual structured, well-made creative brief would be really beneficial in that, where I can go fill out this creative brief and they get a good idea of what I need from them, right? Radiant, I think the thing I'd highlight with Radiant right now, because they have a lot of plans. They're also doing some management restructuring right now. We're going to put a new head manager in there soon. They are building up in I forget the term they use, special experiences, essentially, private room experiences. They are pushing more on those kinds of things. They have a new forum in their category talking about ways to make special experiences for people. The prototype, which I'll highlight, was Ayumi way back when that was Frolic as a venue, not before the split. Ayumi made a performance where it was a dance performance meant for a private room, where she turned into a fish, because she loves fish and water and all that kind of stuff. And she would do this cool, like, underwater performance. She'd flood the room with water and all this kind of stuff. Kind of the prototype for where a lot of people are going with it. And a lot of people are doing similar kinds of things, really pushing the idea of, like, bits, gimmicks to their nth degree, because some staff at Radiance have, like, card games and all this kind of stuff, or tarot reading, or these kinds of little props to make things entertaining. They're just pushing it even past that, making them really unique things. I think they flooded part of the venue last time. I wasn't there for it, but that's what I heard during one of those little performance things, which is super cool. On Observa's side, you're going to be seeing more Huel, Chartreuse, and Noel. Now that we have all three, we're very confident in their synergy and the synergy the actors are building up and being able to play them off each other. When we had just Huel, it was a bit hard to use him because he's just kind of old book guy, which is great because now he has Chartreuse, which is like, you know, stern money woman, and Noelle, who's like bubbly personality girl, right? And they both can play off them, Huel well, and they can play off each other well. It's much better synergy. So you'll be seeing them in our venues more. And depending on how survey is going, we're toying with the idea of a light theme or a light story, which is similar to like what the grand opening was. This is the grand opening. That's the narrative for the night. Right, it's the grand opening of the theater, right? Similar kind of ideas with that. It's fucking like, Huel's tired today. What does that do? Right? How can you kind of play off that, right? Mostly for the comments, Luminaries are not going to be expected to follow this if we go through with this idea. But that's kind of where we're thinking on that front. Pushing these ideas more, giving the team more to work with. Operations is nearing, to my understanding, nearing completion of the portal that they've been working on for a year or two now, which is very exciting. It's a tool they've custom built and is used for data management. We're going to be using it to track like attendance and that kind of stuff. They've got some fancy shit in there, I'm sure, with like API tie-ins and VRCX and all this kind of data. So I don't know, it's past my purview and way over my head on that kind of stuff. But see, I know I'm going to be enjoying it because it displays data for every single event we've had. And I can go in there and log in with my Discord account and see all the relevant stuff to me as Trudeus head manager, see all the data I want to see, interact with stuff, all that kind of crap, all in one portal. And it has the added benefit of everyone that worked on it can use this on a resume of like, this is something we made. Like, this is a legitimate portal that we're using to data manage things. Creative has a lot of projects they're working on, like I teased earlier. It's nice having a world team. And that's kind of where I'll leave it at that right now for them, but they've been cooking on stuff. I think that's all the teams. It's all five, right? I think I hit all five.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you hit all five. Yeah, you hit all two. Yeah. Creative?
Okay, cool.
Maybe creative?
Creative is world stuff.
Okay.
That and lore production, of course. You'll be meeting two characters, at least two. I don't know specific numbers, but I know there's going to be at least two characters for Radiance that will be made next year. And they will match the tone of Radiance. They're going to be a very different tone, to my understanding, than the very formal, clean founders of Observa. Kind of a yin to the yang kind of vibe. They're going to be a little bit more, they'll fit a venue that's a nightclub and, has some interesting, things going on under the table, so to speak, which I'm very excited for. Lord, don't skin me if I'm teasing anything too much. And then, of course, Worlds, and then Abby team getting characters for that. World team building their stuff up. Lore's going to have a hand in that, of course, including with the production of world thingies and all that stuff. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I think our overall goals this year, there seems to be a pretty big consensus on less collabs this year, which makes sense because the schedule this year, being frank, was a clusterfuck of we didn't know what was coming down the pipeline until it was there, and it's like, yeah, we want to do this. Like, this is good. I want to do this. We want to do this, And then you do that, and then it turns out we had like 3 regular shows for Observer last year, something like that. Something like 3 or 4, like really small, with 2 major themed events and like Rain Dance, and like there's just a lot. Like, we had 2 shows the second half of the year. Like, for 6 months we had 2 shows, which was like the August show, right? I think it was 2 shows. I don't think we did anything in May. I know, yeah, no. May was a regular. June was a rerun of Lux and Lunacy for Rain Dance. And then I don't think we did anything in July. And then August was grand opening. And then we went on break for a week or 2. And then we did prep for Voidfall. And then Voidfall was it. And we're not doing a December show. So we want to avoid things like that. There's a lot of interest in the team to get to a regular cadence, which I completely agree with and I completely support. And that will enable us to not have to pivot as much. last year was a lot of pivoting, obviously making a new brand, identity, building relationships was really important. New Eden handled a lot of that relationship building beforehand. So we've had to do a lot of ground roots on that, which has been phenomenal to do. People in this game are wonderful. And building those connections. And, now we can kind of sit here and be like, okay, as I'm scheduling out the next year, I know kind of what major events are open to us, and we can prioritize. There might be things we did this year that we're not going to do next year in favor of more regular shows or regular events. And even in that context, like Radiance has a lot of ideas on how to keep their events very fresh and new and seasonal, phrase it that way, moving things forward. So everyone's trying to really get in a good spot right now and do a big push for the next year. It's going to be a lot of cool stuff.
Hell yeah. All right. So for anyone who hasn't gone to a Luxe Nova show before or has never heard of Luxe Nova in the past, why should they come to a Luxe Nova show, whether it be Observer or Radiance? Why should they pay attention to what Luxe Nova is doing compared to any other performing arts group that's doing things in VRChat?
I'm gonna make this pitch in two different ways. So one, I'll pitch for guests, and two, I'll pitch for talent because I love pitching for talent. So for those that want to experience something very special and a group that tries new things a lot and doesn't want to just do the same old, we're kind of up your alley, right? Observa, we're always trying to innovate on ideas, try new things, push things forward. Even as I said earlier, other venues going for like the stage dance style and everything, which I'm thankful that other people are doing that. It's fun to see how other people approach this idea in formatting. And we've learned things from seeing other venues do that kind of stuff. I think we do have something special, and that's something I hear from a lot of people who see our shows. Now, obviously, it's selection bias a little bit because they're at our show, so obviously. And of course, I've heard from people who are just like, this ain't my vibe, and I get that. I'm not a huge theater kid myself. I completely understand. I'm not the kind of guy that goes spends a Saturday night at the theater, like the live theater, right?
Right.
I'm just not that dude. That's not my vibe, right? Plenty of our team members are. I'm not, right? I'd rather be in playing games or something like that. So if you're looking for something really special, I would say check out our venues. I think Radiance has landed on and is innovating on a very unique social party concept where you do have go-go's happening and all this kind of stuff, but they push to be interactive with the audience and interactive with the Ashles or floor hosts. And there's a good amount of role play going on. Like you go to the bar and chat with people, and like it feels like a bar, right? It feels like they're actually there to chat with you and everything. The staff will host games or host little bits and all this kind of stuff. So it's not just a show up and drink house party kind of vibe. And while I love a house party, it's not quite what we're going for. It's not a rave, even though we may have live DJs. Or you just kind of stand around chatting, maybe some go-go's on stage or whatever. It's immersive. The point of what we're both going for, both venues are going for, is immersiveness and pushing those boundaries and making those connections. And I think Radiance does a good job of that with the way they've built out their team and the way things go. It feels like you can just chat with your friends if you want to, or you can interact with the actual staff members. And you can tell the staff members because they're all wearing dress attire. They're all dressed up in a certain way. We have uniforms and outfits, or dress codes to follow to give that sense of immersion. It's like you are at a staffed event. This is not just show up and drink. There's things going on. They'll do halftime shows and all this kind of stuff. And Observe is similar, where you are at a theater. It is a theater venue. We have very engaging hosts, in my opinion, that do great work. Jinx specifically has been knocking out of the park. I only found out recently that this was her first hosting experience, which actually blew my mind because she's so damn good at it. I thought she had experience beforehand before taking on the role, but she didn't. So huge shout out to her. And our performances, people put a lot of time and effort and love into them. And I do think that if you come to our shows, if you care, if stage performances or visual performances at all are kind of your vibe and forte, and diving into these immersive worlds is kind of something you're interested in, check out Observe It. Like, we do really cool stuff. The team puts a ton of time and effort into what they do, and all that kind of stuff. It is, I think, a very special experience. And That's for guests, for talent. Hi, possible future recruits. For y'all, we're just a good work environment. And like everything I just said about the guest aspect is true for the entirety of the team. And the team really does have people that want to push and grow and improve and make gains and push boundaries and all these kinds of things. And if you're looking for an environment where you can do something that really contributes to other things, and you're looking for a space that's not just the regular run-of-the-mill, oh, we're running another, show tonight, and this is the third one this week or whatever. We're just, running another, rave instance. I'm not trying to bag on the rave scene. I go to rave events all the time. I got friends in the space and everything. But if that's not really your forte anymore, and you're wanting something different, or dancers specifically, like a lot of our dancers are from the exotic dance space, right, or still perform in that environment in some capacity, but a lot of our performers don't want to do that space anymore because they want something new and different. If you are out there and you feel in that way of like, I want to try something new and different, check us out. Radiance is going to be a different vibe than what you're used to for your exotic dancing. Go-going is a different beast entirely. Burlesque is a different beast. And then, of course, stage performances are a very different beast up there, right? Because we don't allow nudity up there at all. You can do some kind of sensual shit. Like, that's fine. But, it's a totally different environment. And it's a different culture and everything. And if you're wanting something, to really dive into, that come check us out. Like, if you're looking for something different, something to really push boundaries, a team where you can feel supportive and grow, come check us out. We've been told that we are like a cult, and I've heard this from a couple people, and we find it humorous because some folks see, I think, our passion and what we do and our dedication to our craft and view it as cultish. Because I think that those individuals might be in the space of like, I'm here to have fun and just hang out, and all the work you guys are putting in is weird to me. And that's an understandable perspective. Like, I understand it, right?
Yeah.
And that goes into what I said earlier too of, work is cool versus like hanging out and being not caring is cool, right? Both are valid in their own way, and there's times for one or the other. But I don't think we're cultish. I don't demand loyalty or anything like that as much as you might see staff members put up stickers of me. I don't demand loyalty or anything like that. I'm not a psychopath. I get a little bit uncomfortable with some of those stickers, to be honest, because it's a lot of attention. I'm just like, okay, I'm cool with it, and I'll tolerate it, but it's not what we're about. It's not about me or, any other individual staff member. It's about what we can do as a collective group. And how we can build together and support each other to create really cool things. And if you are out there looking for something like that, check us out. Like I said earlier, we're not going to accept everybody. We have expectations, and we make sure you're culture fit. But if that sounds good to you, there's a good chance you're a culture fit for us.
All right. Hell yeah. All right. So I do have a couple more questions for you. That I'm gonna touch on. Well, hopefully, I'm sure you'll have really great answers for these too. But yeah, we're getting to the tail end of things. So my first question in this little segment is, what drives you? And I mean in general, like what drives you to be a leader? What drives you to do what you do? What drives you in life? What is it about what makes you you that continues to, materialize into like results and all sorts of different like cool things. Like, what is that element that pushes you forward every day?
I hope my luminary cabins are watching right now, because we ask this exact same question in interviews and we always joke about it. So for me, I would say that I just find it fun. Like, I don't think it's a complicated thing. I just enjoy leadership, and I struggled with that I'll focus on leadership because that's the thing that really drives me. I would say is like, I just enjoy being a leader. I enjoy supporting people. I enjoy building structures. I enjoy helping people solve their problems. I enjoy giving guidance. It's not always a good time, but nothing fucking is a good time all the time, right? And I just really enjoy it. And I struggled with that for years, honestly, of accepting that it's okay to enjoy something like that. Where it feels like, I think there's perceptions of like, leaders are egotistical, or they are looking for attention and all this kind of stuff. And some of them absolutely are. And I will not sit here and deny it or like lie and be like, I don't like the attention. 100% I do. It's part of it, right? Like I'm upfront about that. It's part of the shtick. But I think it goes to a fundamental level of what do you actually enjoy doing with your time? And I think it's for any other aspiring leaders out there or leaders right now that may struggle with this, it's okay to feel pride in being a leader. That's an okay thing. You don't need to feel guilty for it. And this might just be a me thing, honestly. I would assume there's others out there that feel similarly. I'm not sure. It can be lonely at the top is the way I like to phrase it too. So I find a lot of camaraderie in other leaders from other communities on their issues and struggles and what they've gone through. I've had great conversations with Scoot and Kamai specifically on like how to handle certain things and just shooting the shit about situations that were just so stupid or just so frustrating or so intense. But for me, like I just genuinely enjoy leading and the aspects that go into it. It's just genuinely fun for me. I genuinely have experience with it. And I enjoy it. And I question, like, obviously there's groups I'm part of where I'm not a leader, but I tend to find myself drifting to those positions in the long term in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not an official position, like, hosting classes at a club. For example, one of the I perform at Sexy AF over with Foxy and all them, right? And I've hosted cloning lessons for them before, and the dancers took it and ran with it. And the next time I go there, like the dancers doing moves I didn't even teach them. They were just innovating. It was like, this is really cool. Like that brings me a lot of joy and pride, right? Part of that teacher aspect, leader aspect. I just really like it. Like it's not a complicated thing. I feel a lot of people make things really complicated. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm out here to save the world. I'm fucking not, man. I'm not here for that. I want to be so for real. I love helping. I'm very proud of the amount of charity work we've done. But when I've organized 2 auctions for Luxe Nova, and we've raised like 11 grand through those auctions. And my good feeling at the end of the night was not because of the money raised to help people. My good feeling was, oh my God, that was so smooth. We ran that so well. The team did so good. That's what really clicked with me. I love that we did good stuff. That's a huge benefit. But that wasn't my walk away wasn't, I feel so good that we just raised $9,000 for charity for the Trevor Project. My walk away was, damn, we ran a good auction. That was cool. I enjoyed organizing it. The team did great. It was cool seeing everyone together. I want to do it again. It's just fun,
Yeah. All right, cool. I actually really like that answer. I can really relate to a lot of what you're saying. I mean, a lot of what you said tonight in terms of leadership and just being kind of drawn to those sorts of positions, I definitely can relate to, and we can talk about that like later on. But my next question for you is, where would you like to be in 2 years? And I don't mean in terms of location. I mean in terms of just like your life. It doesn't have to be in relation to Luxe Nova. It could be in relation to really anything. Yeah. So like, where would you like to be in 2 years? Like, where are you kind of aiming towards, or would like to aim towards?
I like to be in a situation where I can look back on the decisions I made in those 2 years. I did like 75% right. That's where I'd like to be. Position means nothing to me. In that context, I don't care about the title I have or anything like that. It's irrelevant. I have jokes with Perry, head of operations, who I met through PlanetSide, and he's been a very loyal friend, and me to him, and he's been great. I'm just fucking tearing up. Fuck you, Perry, if you watch this. He's been great, and we made jokes way back when of like, oh man, Trudy's doing a leadership thing again. He said he wouldn't do it, but he's doing it, right? I don't have strong feelings on whether I end up in a leadership position or not somewhere, or whether I'm doing some cool art or not. I don't know what the future holds. I've learned the separation doing was on my first rodeo on that happened in PlanetSide as well. That one, the leader was a racist piece of shit. Got no issues flaming his ass. And just bad situation. I've learned that, there are a lot of things I can't control. And I'm not going to waste time thinking about controlling them or anything like that. I can control how I grow as a person, as a leader. And I want to be in a position where I can look back and be like, yeah, I've grown a lot. I feel more confident as a leader. Maybe I've humbled. Maybe I've gotten more confident. Who fucking knows, right? I've made gains. I've helped people. I've made good decisions. And I've learned from the decisions I made, whether they were good or bad. I've learned from them and learned, improvements. I think a big thing I learned from my time in New Eden was risk-taking and actually going for big things, because if you don't do it, you're not going to get anywhere with stuff. And now one of my main things I bring up to the cabins is like, what if we make this work though? Like, yeah, it's fucking hard, but like, what if we did it? Like, what if we made it work? Right? Like, how far can we go with this? Is it worth the effort? All these questions, of course, come up, but I used to be very maintenance as a leader. I didn't have big goals or anything like that. I didn't have big strategies. I would do projects here and there. I still had stuff like I take credit for in Planet Side. There's these classes called max suits, and our faction never used them because they got nerfed. And it was clearly a psychological thing because everyone was traumatized from these nerfs that happened. And I was like, this is stupid. This class is still incredibly overpowered. It's just not as overpowered. Why are we not using these? So we started using them more. Like me and my team that Perry was part of started using them more, and we saw data of them going up on the server, and we got feedback from other communities being pissed at us because people started using them more, and they were very annoying to play against. And that was like very confidence building, like reassuring feedback. And not just us using them more, therefore the numbers are going up, but other communities started that we were associated with. They would come to us for training. We would teach them how to use them, and they would start using them more as well. And it became more of a thing. So projects like that I've always had the idea for, but I want to continue to take risks and continue to find ways where I'm like, my thing right now is accountability. Being better at keeping people accountable and myself accountable on things and keeping on track of stuff. And I've been taking steps on that in the last 6 months. And I want to be in 2 years being able to look back on that and be like, I've done that work. I feel I'm in a good spot. Here's another thing that I did in that 2 years time. And here's another thing I did in that 2 years time, along with the decisions associated with those kind of things. You only find those things to fix and work on by fucking up a decision. And letting something go on too long or not long enough or not giving enough care and appreciation to someone or giving someone too much slack, right? That's how you figure out those things, trial and error.
All right. Love that. And if you can give any advice to people who are listening and who are watching, if you can give any advice, it doesn't have to be about Luxe Nova, it doesn't have to be about, gaming. It could be really about anything that you believe is advice that you want to give straight from you to the people who are listening. What would that piece of advice be?
Easy. Very easy. You get to choose who you spend time with. Just straight up. There are exceptions to this rule, obviously. Like if you're in school, it fucking sucks sometimes, and you can't really choose your coworkers. But when you're in your free time, you got to choose who you spend time with. You got to choose the people you keep around. And I'll tie this into leadership a little bit. One of those laws that John talks about in that book, again, 21 Year Feeble Laws of Leadership. I'm not sponsored. I just think it's a fucking phenomenal book. And me and some captains are rereading it right now. Actually, it's great. One of the laws, I think it's like law 11 or some shit. I just sent this to a friend earlier today who's asking for leadership advice. Is the law of the inner circle. And it talks about, these people, some people are with you for a good time, some people are with you a long time, some people are with you for a lifetime, right? And there's going to be people with you that are with you for a lifetime. I don't know who those people are in my life. I have no fucking clue. And you don't, and no one does, right? It's one of those things that shakes out as it shakes out. Right? There are people that I thought would be lifelong friends, and I haven't talked to them in years. Would I be able to talk to them? So, yeah, 100%. But I've made decisions that put me in environments where there's people that are like me and not like me, which is an important thing too, having that diversity, right? But that law essentially states that you as a leader are only as good as the people around you, right? And this goes into his first rule as well, the law of the lid, which is you have a limit based on your own skill set. And you need to find people who can lift that skill set for you. I'm not good at data work. I mean, I'm okay at it, but I'm not that good, right? But other staff members are, and they carry that weight for me, right? Some of them may not have the emotional intelligence I do. So I can step in those situations and help them out, right? When it's something more sensitive, right? These kinds of things come up. And you got to choose the environment you're in. You got to choose the people you hang out with. You got to choose what influences you have on your life. You got to choose whether you go to the Black Cat and hang out with everyone, just get drunk every night. Story I'll point out on that is I popped into a drinking night once, and this girl was talking about, like, she saw her doctor that day, and the doctor was like, yeah, you need to stop drinking like 8 a day. And she was like, this sucks. And I'm like, look, like, I love a drink, okay? I'm not here to judge. That woman needs help. Like, that is legitimate alcoholism. They need to get help, right? And, you know, you get to choose the people you associate with. If you're choosing the people that associate with that kind of stuff, you're going to struggle, right? Because you're going to be around all that all the time, right? I'm very appreciative of the people on our team who are not drinking all the time, because I can look at them and be like, oh, shout out Blueberry Bud, that he drinks like once a month. And he just has like a couple, and that's it. And that's a very healthy way to approach alcohol, right? I don't do that. I need to get better at it. But that's a very healthy way to approach alcohol, right? And I appreciate him a ton for being in this space and still maintaining to his value. I'm just like, I just don't want to do it. I don't like it. I don't find it fun. Good for you, man. Right? Good for you. If you hang out with people who get in trouble, you're going to end up getting in trouble. Hang out with people who do, you know, sound like mom right now. You hang out with people who get bad grades, you're going to get bad grades. Hang out with nerds who do a lot of good shit, you're going to be a nerd that does a lot of good shit. Right? And that's just how it shakes out. And I'm incredibly blessed to be able to work with the team and everyone on there who do really cool stuff. And it inspires me to do really cool stuff and push myself in my own growth, whether it's leadership or making promos or something like that. But it is so important to recognize the people around you, because, oh my God, there's so many people who stress the fuck out over shit they don't need to be stressing out because one of their friends causes drama, or some of their friends cause drama, and they're sucked into it all the goddamn time, and it gives them gray hairs, speaking from experience, and it just stresses them out, and I guarantee it'll shave 3 years off your life from all the anxiety and stress, if not more. And it could lead to other issues like cardiovascular issues and alcoholism or weed abuse and all this kind of stuff, right? I partake in Mary J too, don't get me wrong. But, you know, there's times and places for everything. And like, if you want to get good at shit and build shit up, you got to be around those kinds of people. It's simple as that. It's just, you get to choose. You have the ability to do that. You get to choose who's in your life and who you associate with and who you do that kind of stuff. For the most part, there's exceptions, but in general, that's what you get to do. You have the ability to do that, and you should exercise that right to do that. If someone is bad and you don't enjoy being around them, and you feel drained hanging out with them, don't hang out with them. If you're allergic to peanuts, don't eat peanuts. It's that simple. If someone is not good for your mental health, don't hang out with them. Don't feel obligated to hang out with them. You have to prioritize your mental health and your stability for what you do best. That's what you need to focus on. You get to make those decisions yourself. You get to choose it around you. Don't let other people pressure you and be like, oh, you're boring now. No, fuck that. That's stupid. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy. We had a team member who figured this out a while back. Shout out to him. I'm not gonna name him because it's stuff, but like, he knows who he is. Just like, great shit. Like, I've seen people learn these lessons and take it to heart, and the growth they've done is phenomenal. They're so much happier as people. And that's what it's being about, is like, why be upset in life? Why hate? You know, there's plenty of people in the world that I hate, but it's like a passive, like, I hate Nazis and that kind of shit. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's not like a sitting there with hate in my heart and letting it devour me. Life is so much more than that. It can be so much better than that if you just make the decisions to make it that way and put yourself in those positions where it can be that way. 100. Long-winded as fuck.
No, 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 100%. No, like that's so true. It's so true, and like that's something that you know, I live that way every day. Like it's so important. You become the people you surround yourselves around.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You have to just keep that in mind. And like, I don't feel pressured to go to places or be around people that I don't want to be around. It's not worth my time. So yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable. So yeah, good shit. I hope someone hears that and takes that to heart.
If one person does, it was successful.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that. You know, one change is all it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I hope to do here. That's the whole point of what I do. So I appreciate that. And one last question: where can people find you?
Oh God. So Blue Sky. I'm on there. Trudeus.gg. Fair warning. Almost everything I say is political. I've gotten compliments on it because some people have similar perspectives on me. Feel free to check me out there. I guess there's your warning. I do post some VRChat content here and there as well, and of course retweet Luxe Nova. I have a personal Discord server. Full warning: it is not associated with Luxe Nova. A good amount of teams in there though. It's just stupid. It's just a stupid place. The opening introduction is like anything you say in here can and will be used against you in the court of being a big dumb head. So just expect a lot of stupidity if you do pull up on that. It is technically a public server. It's in my bio and everything. Please check out Luxe Nova. Like, just come check us out. The team puts in so much fucking work and so much time and effort, and they put so much. I really just cannot stress it enough how much work this team puts in. It's so inspiring every fucking day. And check them out, support them, show them love, show them support, show them care. Follow them on socials, all that kind of stuff. Check out the team socials. And just really, yeah, there you go. I'm not on Twitter. Fuck Twitter. Sorry, I know you've got, I probably just on Twitter. Anything like that. It's really just Blue Sky for me on the socials, and obviously Luxe Nova ship.
All right, cool. All right, and for those of you who would like to keep up with me and find me, I am on Twitch. I stream 6 days a week on Twitch these days, so you can find me over at twitch.tv/Nepherti with 2 eyes. You can also find me over at X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, whatever. It's I'm Nepherti with 2 eyes. You can find me over there. If you would like to keep up with the podcast and the episode releases, I also do shorts and other sorts of content over on my YouTube channel, and that's also where the podcast is currently being produced. I'm strongly considering creating its own YouTube channel, and that just takes a lot of work, a lot of time to do. I'm episode 72, but for now you can go and find me on YouTube. If you just search Nepherti with 1 eye, and if you type in VTuber, if I don't come up, I'll definitely come up. So you can find me over at YouTube. You can also find information about the podcast itself over on Twitter. The channel, the page is called Sweet Talking Pod. So if you go over to that social media site, you can find me over there. I also technically have a Blue Sky, which I don't really post on very much, but I largely just use that for if I'm announcing a guest on my podcast. That's generally what I use it for, just to kind of support my friends that are over there and highlight people who are going to be on my podcast who are strictly on Blue Sky, more or less. So you can find me over there, Nepherti, I believe with 1 eye. I think I got that account, so yay, I guess. And I also recently created a channel for a VRC group specifically for the podcast. If you'd like to keep up with that, that is also something that I did just this week. That happened literally a couple days ago. So if you're interested in keeping up with updates about who's going to be on the podcast, if you're interested in perhaps, maybe in the future I may do another live recording where there's a live studio audience type deal, and just to kind of know people who are just interested in the podcast, I'd really appreciate you guys joining that. It's free for anybody to join. There's no need for people to be approved. You can literally just join it and receive all the updates there. Super easy if you want to. All the information will be down below. So same thing for Trudeus too. His information will be down below when this is edited later on as well. So, and also, I guess last but not least, there's also my Patreon. If you'd like to support me there, I have a variety of different tiers, and if you're interested in supporting me over there, I'm probably going to be revamping that yet again. But if you'd like to support me over on patreon.com/Nepherti, I would very much appreciate that. That is basically how I kind of justify me doing this. There are a number of exclusive rewards, but most importantly, you can watch the post conversations of all of my guests, or I won't say all of my guests, but the majority of my guests. You can watch the post conversations over there on my Patreon as a subscriber over there. So Trudeus and I will be having an additional conversation that will be released over on my Patreon page if you're interested in supporting me there, and I'd really appreciate that if you're interested in that sort of thing. But I think that will do it for at least this portion of the podcast. Like I said, Trudeus and I will be continuing our conversation in just a little bit after we wrap things up here. But I do want to thank Trudeus for being such a very passionate and very detailed guest. I love when my guests have a lot to say, because I just get to sit here and just listen to them and appreciate what they're saying, and I just have to ask good questions to inspire them to come up with really, really good answers. So thank you for being such a great guest. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm good at not shutting the fuck up, so it works out really well.
Oh, you and me both. Maybe a little bit. So I definitely have that problem too. So I definitely talk quite a lot. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I look forward to continuing our conversation in just a little bit. But before we do that, I want to thank you guys who are watching this episode 72 of the Sweet Talking Podcast. Thank you all, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Twitch. I really appreciate you guys supporting what I do. Again, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Literally every little bit helps. I very, very much appreciate that. Very, very much. And of course, we're going to go ahead and jump into the post-conversation. But until next time, for those of you watching on YouTube and otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If anything that happened in the episode applied to you or inspired you, please be sure to leave a comment down below. Leave a like. I'd very much appreciate that too. And of course, subscribe. Thank you. Thank you. And I very much appreciate that. But of course, I will see you guys in the next episode of the Sweet Talking Podcast. I've been your host, Nepherti, joined by Trudeus, head of management of Luxe Nova's Observer team, and just an all-around very stand-up dude. And I very much appreciate having him on. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing him, yap about his passions and everything that he's interested in. So thank you all so much. I will see you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care. Bye-bye. And I'll see you there. Bye.